Hey, everybody, we've got bad news. On this episode of Canary Cry News Talk, our beloved Gonz lost everything. Everything. The whole file of Gonz on his recording is gone into the ether. And so, lucky for you, your best buddy Basil, will be so crisp and so clear. But Gonz will sound like he is buried in a barrel underneath a lake of mud being trampled by brontosauruses. You're welcome, world. And also, the jingles aren't going to sound very good, so we apologize for that. And if this is the first time you're listening to Canary Cry News Talk, we apologize. Don't base your whole thoughts on us on this episode. Most of the time, the sound quality is significantly better. Okay, enjoy.
No, my recorder failed.
I am the crispy one this time.
The world is getting crazier. People are acting more and more insane. The end of the world is tomorrow. Tomorrow. There's only one thing to do when the world is falling apart. Listen to Basil and Gonz as they discuss this week's news and events through the lens of Bible prophecy. You are listening to Canary Cry News Talk.
You're listening to Canary Cry News Talk. Today is December 16th, 2020. This is episode 277. And today, it's the Beast Code. And you know me, I am your best buddy, Basil.
And this is Gonz. Welcome to the podcast where we praise Jesus while reporting the egregious. And we bring you a well-rounded, biblically grounded intake of world events. And I'm noticing here that some of the titles were messed up, so I had to go back and fix it on Twitch and on DLive. But hopefully everybody sees the Beast Code and some of the subtitles that may or may not be a good idea for the algos. I don't think they like some of the title.
Yeah, that's a new
information that I.
New catchy catchphrase there. Yeah, it's interesting. This is the obviously notifications are not going out almost at all. At this point in the broadcast, we're usually in the hundreds of live viewers, and we are certainly not there yet. So we'll see. Make sure to share this out so people can catch the live broadcast. Make sure to hit that like button. Tell the algorithms that this show is worth taking a look at. But other than that, Gonz, what's going on with you?
Not much. I'm just going to mention this.
Bitcoin go to moon.
Oh, yeah.
All-time highs
with
right. Bitcoin.
Let's see here. December
look at that.
16th.
It's 21,269. It broke the 21,000 barrier as we were getting ready for the show here. So
yeah, big day.
Wow.
Big day.
That is crazy.
Bitcoin has not been this high. Well, it's higher than it was, but it hasn't been this high in 3 years, basically. And I think that's very interesting. Do you think there's some news connected that may have caused this little jump? What do you think? What do you think is?
Yeah, there was. There's been a lot of institutions coming in to buy Bitcoin recently, but there was a rumor about 2 days ago that Mark Zuckerberg was starting to pour in about $4 billion into Bitcoin, and that might have created some FOMO if nothing else has. So that could be the catalyst. I don't know. I mean, the bottom line is that there's not that much Bitcoin to go around, so it's not surprising.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is a crazy day to be alive. Yeah. $21,000 for some code. Just some code out there.
A historic day, and exciting for all you Bitcoin people all out there.
Well, I do want to do a
called it,
because I have receipts back in, I think, May. I said that in Q4, which we're in right now, Bitcoin would hit 20,000. So I was right.
It. You called it, buddy.
I called it.
Yeah.
But there you go.
And if the word of many analysts is to be believed, it's all uphill from here. There'll certainly be a pullback here, and if not today, at least in the next couple days. Happens every time you hit an all-time high.
But it might be a couple weeks, couple months.
You think so? You think it'll take that long, huh?
Yeah, because there's more money coming in, so I don't think it's the pullbacks may not be as violent
Mm-hmm.
But yes, we do expect
a lot more stability
bull
with all this institutional money coming in.
Yeah. They don't want to see their portfolios go down 30-40%, which is what we saw between 2016 and 2017.
Right.
When it went back to all-time highs back then, it was $1,000, and then in less than a year went from 1,000 to 20,000, and then it dropped back down to 3,000. So we'll see something similar, but longer stretch of time because there's more money involved.
Real roller coaster ride.
It is. But yep, there you go. What was I think we made some predictions like several episodes ago, and I think I was in like 200 something thousand. You were in 150,000 or something. So
yeah, I forget.
It's still a while.
We'll have to go back and check the records.
I know we got to get a little notebook or something to keep all of our predictions in line. But yeah, there you go. That's a quick thing that happened.
Fun times. Well, there is a little bit of hubbub that happened as far as election news. You got any little election updates for us?
And so my question is very direct. Is voting by mail secure? No.
Yeah, first off, obviously there's still a lot going on. One thing I want to mention is why am I getting more credible information about what's going on with the election from social media? Like random citizens doing a better job of actually documenting, documents and stuff that's public. But I'm getting the info on social media from, citizen journalists rather than any kind of mainstream media.
Because they have nothing to gain from controlling your narrative.
I guess, but the people have been doing a pretty good job of collecting the evidence and sharing it.
Mm-hmm.
I've been following Code Monkeys, and he's done a pretty good job of collecting information and getting a community of people sharing all the data points that it's all public. It's not like this is conjecture or QAnon or Q post or something.
Right.
This is like all public information that they're collecting and sharing. So yeah, it's just ridiculous. I'm not surprised, obviously, that the mainstream media isn't carrying it. But the other thing here that happened, I guess it was today, was there was like a Senate hearing, and there's some stuff that went down. This is a heated moment between Ron Johnson and Gary Peters. It's a couple minutes long, but then we'll get to the main part, which is Rand Paul. Rand Paul comes in at the end of this clip. You want to hear it, Basil?
Let's hear it.
Oh, what happened?
You're just teasing me.
No, I know. I just messed it up. Hold on. Where did it go? Hit the play button. I love it when the play button.
Did you rewind it after last time you watched it?
I did, but oh man, what's going on? Here we go. A lot of browser issues last couple of days.
By the Justice Department. So it's just galling, and I just have to point out that the purveyors of Russian disinformation, Hillary Clinton's campaign, the DNC, the Steele dossier, the ranking member Peters accusing Senator Grassley and I of disseminating Russian disinformation, that's where the disinformation is coming. That's where the false information, the lies, the false allegations. I can't sit by here and listen to this and say that this is not disinformation, this hearing today. This is getting information we have to take a look at to restore confidence in our election integrity. We're not going to be able to just move on without bringing up these irregularities, examining them, and providing an explanation and see where there really are problems so we can correct it moving forward.
By the way, before we move on, for those of you watching, it's really interesting because this is Ron Johnson there talking. Behind him, there's a thing that looks like DNA. I don't know what else to call it. It looks like DNA, like kind of a metal design version of DNA. I don't know if that means anything, but something I noticed. I know.
Senator Paul.
Mr. Chairman, I got to respond to that. You're saying I'm putting out information. Well, one, I had nothing to do with
You lied repeatedly. You lied repeatedly in the press that I was spreading Russian disinformation, and that was an outright lie. And I told you to stop lying, and you continue to do it.
Mr. Chairman, this is not about airing your grievances. I don't know what rabbit hole you're running down.
You talked about Russian disinformation.
Down rabbit holes.
Senator Paul.
This is simply not what we're dealing with. Well, Mr. Chairman, you can't make these false allegations and then dropping it there. That is why this Senator Paul needs to return back to its Senator Paul partisan things. This is terrible what you're doing to this committee and all the great work that you talked about.
It is what you have done to this committee.
It is not
falsely accusing the chairman of spreading disinformation. Nothing could have been further from the truth, and you're spouting it again, which is why I had to respond. Senator Paul.
Mr. Chairman.
Judge Storm.
This is outrageous.
Judge Storm. It's been alleged that 60 courts have refused to hear these cases. Therefore, there was no fraud in the election. I guess another way of looking at this is that the court cases have been refused.
And it goes into, I think this guy, Aaron Rupar, who's not friendly to the conservative side of things, had to divide it up here. But here's Rand Paul, the rest of the clip here.
But the fraud happened. The election in many ways was stolen, and the only way it'll be fixed is by, in the future, reinforcing the laws. And the only last comment I would say on what Mr. Krebs, and he can speak for himself, but I think his job was keeping the foreigners out of the election. It was the most secure election based on security of the internet and technology. But he never has voiced an opinion he's welcome to today on whether or not dead people voted. I don't think he examined that. Did he examine non-citizens voting? So to say it was the safest election, sure, I agree with your statement if you're referring to foreign intervention. But if you're saying it's the safest election based on no dead people voted, no non-citizens voted, no people broke the absentee rules, I think that's false. And I think that's what's upset a lot of people on our side, is that they're taking your statement to mean, oh, well, there was no problem in the elections. I don't think you examined any of the problems that we've heard here. So really, you're just referring to something differently is the way I look at it.
So there you go. Rand Paul saying that the election was stolen.
Well, I don't know if that's quite what he said, but pointing out, some good misdirections.
Verbatim, Basil. Hold on, though. Verbatim.
Oh, but the fraud happened. The election in many ways was stolen.
There you go. I mean, that's like pretty verbatim.
Okay. Yeah.
The fraud happened.
Sure.
The election was pretty much stolen. So, I mean, I'm not putting words in his mouth when I say that. But, but the thing that I think is interesting is Rand Paul is talking about, I don't think there was any foreign interference, which is not what the citizen journalists are saying. They're saying there's a lot of foreign interference, especially China with Dominion, the machines, and all that kind of stuff. There's some paper trails there.
Well, I mean, even just on its face, the fact that Dominion and Smartmatic are basically foreign-run companies, that would count as foreign interference, I believe.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to see if anything comes out of it. Obviously, they voted on the 14th, and Biden got the 270 electoral votes. And then on the 6th of January, that'll become official if they get, if they follow the Constitution. There's some other things that Trump can do to potentially pull it off here, but that's neither here nor there. I hope you're enjoying the show.
Just keeps getting more exciting. Yes, you couldn't write it better than it's happening.
No, but yeah, there you go. That's the election update. We don't like to meddle or peddle or whatever too much in the election stuff, because there's a lot of other shows doing it, and every one of those shows is coming at it from either the right or the left. There's very few who are trying to analyze what's going on objectively, although I guess people on the conservative aisle will say that they're looking at it more objectively than
everybody
than the
else. Everybody thinks they're being objective, but the point is being, not having a partisan bias is pretty difficult. But there certainly is some pretty objective things to object to as far as the potential evidence, and it certainly is far from over. We never expected it to be quick.
Yep. So there you go. That's our little election thing. Again, it may or may not come up as an adjacent to some of the things we report on throughout the show.
Yeah. And
but I don't think there's much of it today.
Senjess over on Twitch mentions, does anybody remember the time Basil had a super awkward Canary Cry Radio interview with Rand Paul? That's right. I did have a chance to sit down with Rand Paul one time. It just happened to be something that was, was something that happened once. What year was that? Do you remember?
Oh,
it must have been
2014.
Yeah, something like that. 2014, 2015. This was back when he was kind of playing around with the idea of running for president, and he was getting the word out about the Federal Reserve and all this type of stuff. He was feeling out the waters. I almost want to say it was before. I don't know. I'm going to have to look at the dates on some things, but it was very fun. And yes, I was very nervous. It was an in-person interview, and it was one of those things where like his security people were like, what are you going to ask? What are you talking about? Where are you going to be? How far are you going to sit away from him? Let me see your microphone. It's like this whole thing. And there's all his security guys were like standing around the room. So it was an
you got
awkward.
Really nervous.
I was very nervous. There's a lot of reasons to be nervous.
I remember you were like, I had about 10 minutes with him. And the first question you asked was like, I like your sweater or whatever it was.
He was wearing a pretty funny, just trying to break the ice.
Yeah. Okay. Very limited time to ask really hard-hitting questions, but hey, let's talk about your sweater.
Yeah.
And just for people out there, Rand Paul has seen your face.
That's true.
Right?
He's the
you
only
weren't wearing a mask. I mean, they would.
No, yeah, that was
walking with the mask.
They probably would not let me interview him if I was wearing sunglasses and a fake beard. It would have made his security guys even much more uncomfortable. Actually, I have a pretty fun picture I took with him. Just kind of lives floating around. Okay, let's get on with the show. I think real quick before we get into the the hard hitting stuff, let's talk about Flippy for a second.
Flippy update.
Do you want fries with that?
That's right, folks. The Flippy update. If this is your first time, Flippy is the colloquial name for the disembodied robot arms that are taking our jobs, enslaving our children, and in some cases, flirting with our spouses. We use talking about Flippy as a proxy conversation to discover all the new and interesting ways that the robots are taking over the world. This time, I want to come from a site called BuiltRobotics.com. And BuiltRobotics.com is actually the official website for a company that creates AI robotic construction equipment, construction vehicles. And we like to discover all the different jobs that robots are actively taking from people around the world. And of course, flipping burgers, making cocktails, making smoothies, things like that. Those are all going out the window. As well as some nursing and medical care jobs are at risk as well. I thought this was interesting because it was the first time that some big construction work is being taken. Now let's see here. On the front page says robots that build the world. Do you want to play that little video there?
Better.
Yeah, right.
Sure. Uh-oh. I don't mean it to go into full view. Oh, it's got to go into full view to play. Can you see it? Oh, it's got like music.
Forget it. I'll just read it. It says, meet the robots. Built Robotics' mission is to build the robots that build the world. Build back better. By upgrading off-the-shelf heavy equipment with AI guidance systems, Built's technology enables machines to operate fully autonomously. So this is not a remote-controlled bulldozer. This is fully autonomous heavy machinery. Then they go a long way to say, safe by design, our robots are equipped with a multi-layer safety system to ensure 100% safe operation. The fleet has worked for over 10,000 hours with a perfect safety record. And then, I don't know, they mention a few things
I was just going to say, perfect safety record. Is that because there's no humans or animals in sight of these machines?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, what exactly does count as perfect safety? It's fun because that little picture that they have next to That header there is a picture of a robotic bulldozer pushing some dirt around and a blurry dog running by really quick. So I think we're led to believe
object detected
that this bulldozer will not hit your dog. Shows a little thing there. Yes. Object detected. It's time to build, they say. Construction is needed now more than ever. Critical infrastructure needs to be maintained or rebuilt. Construction dollars must deliver stronger ROI, and job sites need more efficient tools. That's right. None of these inefficient humans. New technology are the foundation of economic growth, and let us rise to meet our greatest challenges. Then they mention a few statistics here. We've got a $2.1 trillion infrastructure funding gap. Unfunded required infrastructure spending through 2025. So those are, infrastructure projects that are not yet funded, presumably by the government. And somehow robotic bulldozers will help us with that. We've got 7.3 million shortfall in new housing units. New families are forming faster than houses are being built. That seems a little questionable to me, but that's okay. They're citing the Wall Street Journal there. And then further on, it says infrastructure report card. We get a D+. Our infrastructure is crumbling, demanding new techniques for repair. Yes, a D+.
Good job, American Society of Civil Engineers.
Yes, well, it's kind of like they wanted to say F, but this is America. We don't get Fs here. That's from the American Society of Civil Engineers. Now, taking on the challenge as our world continues to grow and evolve, so does our need to rethink how we build. Built Robotics is creating 21st century solutions for today's challenges. And then they've got some quotes and stuff. But there you go. When you talk about the future of robots taking our jobs, a lot of times we think of unskilled, repetitive labor that usually are putting, 16-year-olds in jeopardy, whether it be baristas or things like that. Of course, occasionally the occasional medical worker is at risk. But in this case, throughout our exploration of Flippy, construction and especially, specialized construction jobs like driving these heavy machines seemed to have been safe for a while. But now with the advent, of course, of autonomous cars and things like that, it's put heavy machine operators in a little bit of a pickle as well. They're boasting that these are much more efficient, a much more precise, et cetera, and of course you don't have to pay for medical insurance, which traditionally construction jobs can be a little dangerous. So there you go. I don't know. This one kind of there's something about driving tractors, or the idea of, tractors being operated by human beings, that has such an inspiring place in my life. I mean, I've never been a heavy machine operator, but, tractors are cool, man. Growing up, you see those guys driving bulldozers and you just think they're the coolest in the world. Now it's just going to be the AI. And, when the AI goes totally rogue, an army of excavators and bulldozers, it's a little harder to stop than some of the Boston Robotics dogs walking around.
Well, I have confidence in the Trump prophecy bulldozer guy. Remember him?
Yes,
from the summer.
Mm-hmm.
That guy is going to make sure that these robotic bulldozers are taken out.
Yeah, we got to get them a wig or something. Okay, there you go. That's the Flippy update for the day.
All right. Well, we have a few. Oh, before we get into some of the brief updates, I did want to bring up, because your call dropped in the last episode, and I had to run solo for a little bit. But you wanted to touch on the Facebook stuff.
Yeah.
Facebook facing lawsuits from the government.
Big ones.
And since then, there's been a few other lawsuits that have been, and there's always lawsuits against Facebook and stuff, but these seem to be a little bit bigger. Reuters just reported Texas alleges Google had unlawful deal with Facebook in new lawsuit. Apple and Facebook are locked in an epic battle over privacy. That's not the thing. What about this one? Google, Facebook had illegal deal to rig ad market, Texas says. Facebook attempts to vilify Apple, tastes like sour grapes. And Australia also suing Facebook over user data, echoing U.S. antitrust case. And that was the big one, the antitrust case with Facebook, to see if Facebook can be broken up.
Yeah.
So what are your you got some thoughts on the story here? We didn't really get into it too much.
Are you reading from the Hill, thehill.com, that one? Do you have a different article?
No. I have a whole bunch of different ones.
Yeah. So there's all sorts of ones. Basically, the one thing to keep in mind is that, Facebook is now facing lawsuits, not just from other companies, not just from states, which has happened in the past, but, there's federal governments around the world opening lawsuits against Facebook. And of course, when we consider the panopticon, the New World Order, the control mechanisms, in a lot of the cases that we speak about them, we kind of talk about them in a homogenous sort of sense. But this is really interesting because what we're seeing is sort of a battle of the titans between governments and I guess Silicon Valley. I'm just trying to think of the right category because Google has a number of these going on as well. So as we begin to build back better and move into the Great Reset, it feels like there are some governments that feel a little bit more threatened by these big Silicon Valley corporations when it comes to the divvying out of power as the world rebuilds, quote unquote. It's interesting because, a lot of times we talk about these control mechanisms as one big homogenous evil entity, but even within the ranks of the, New World Order, Great Reset gang, there's battles for power, it seems.
Well, it's a gamification. If you're Satan sitting on the throne of the world and everybody wants to get to your throne, you're going to allow them to eat each other on the way up.
Right.
Just some of the things here. Justice Department sued Google on October 20th. The Federal Trade Commission sued Facebook on December 9th. And the State Attorney General, Facebook was sued by a coalition of 46 states, along with the District of Columbia and Guam.
Wow.
Even Guam is like, yep, count us in.
We even got
Who are the other 4 states? Who are the 4 states that didn't? Whereas the District of Columbia, which is D.C. and Guam, would jump in. I guess D.C. makes sense, but Guam, more America than 4 of the states there. But anyway, this is a big deal. We'll see what happens to, Section 230. That's the one Trump was harping on about. And the 230 thing is an issue, I think. It allows these platforms to be, it protects free speech on these platforms on one hand, but as they editorialize content that is published by third parties, that's when it becomes iffy. That's when they start acting like publishers.
It's the legal protections for social media networks.
Right, but the platforms themselves can't be sued like a publisher because of Section 230. It just needs to be amended.
Right.
But we'll see what happens. I don't know that it's going to break up the big tech companies, but certainly it could set them back a little bit.
Well, the interesting thing as well is that not all these lawsuits are about 230. A lot of them are antitrust lawsuits. You've really got quite the gamut of quite the selection of lawsuits that Facebook is choosing, which I find is interesting because, if it was just a bunch of monopoly lawsuits or if it was just a bunch of Section 230 lawsuits, then they could kind of come at the whole group of lawsuits with a united front. But because all these lawsuits are addressing different facets of the system, they're really going to have to work hard to fight on multiple fronts. It seems, you never know with these big companies like Facebook, very powerful tech companies. They seem to pull off a lot of things nobody else can, but they certainly got their work cut out for them. And whether, it's kind of tedious going through all the details of each and every lawsuit, but what we're watching is really the struggle for power in a post-pandemic build back better type of situation. Because if they're able to break up Facebook, even diminish their Section 230 protections, as well as win a few of these other little things, Facebook is going to be in a heap of trouble, not at risk of going out of business, but at risk of losing the sort of monolithic power that they hold worldwide.
Yeah, and there's a really good article here on EFF. That's the Electronic, the Electronic Frontier Foundation. Mm-hmm. And I'll put the link in the chat here. But the article is called Free Speech Only as Strong as the Weakest Link. And it has a diagram, which is really helpful to show you your speech and then where you are tied up and where the audience is tied up and where the weak links are. Mm-hmm. And part of the issue here is building something that is completely separate, because right now we depend so much on third-party platforms like YouTube, Facebook, all these big companies, or not just companies, but services to get our speech out there. And that's part of the issue. That's why they can sort of, knock us down. But I will say there are some very smart people building some things that are going to maybe restructure some of this. And it's going to take a lot of people and a lot of money, really, to make it truly happen, because it starts with the hardware layer. And that's really expensive. But I'll just say that there's a lot of people working on some things that could break up the internet in general in terms of usage. And there could be a main internet out there, and then not an illegal internet, but one that so for example, people like you and I might choose to use because free speech is much more open and free on that internet.
Yeah, well, that's been it's been interesting. There's been a number of stakeholders or people who have different ideas of what the future of the internet looks like. And when you put them all together and you try to figure out what everybody wants, it looks like much how with Mastodon, everybody can have their own social media network and they federate. It kind of looks like the internet could go a route like that in certain cases, which will also be very interesting to see how the current power structure would appreciate that.
Yeah. And I appreciate people mentioning, different platforms, Rumble and Parler and stuff like that. The issue is they're still using all of the infrastructure that was built by the same people. Mm-hmm. And that's the big barrier here that people don't really realize at this time. Like, yeah, you can put together a different website, but if you're still using all the same tools as what's already out there, it's going to be shut down just as much.
Yeah, we're talking about infrastructure level of the internet, not just using a different Facebook, a different social media. We're talking about infrastructure level of networks of servers and data centers and things like that, where, there could be, for instance, two separate internets that may or may not be able to communicate with each other.
So, keep your eyes out for that, because, again, people are working on it.
Yep.
We'll see how it all comes together in the next few years here. But let's get to some updates.
We interrupt this broadcast to give you a brief update. By the end of this timely interruption, you will be thoroughly updated.
33 is the number of completion of the Great War.
33 is the Illuminati dog whistle. And speaking of Google and all these social media platforms, this is blog.google. And they published an article on the Google News initiative titled, "These 33 projects tackle diversity in local news."
Oh, good.
33, of course, 33. Why not? So there you go. I'm not going to even get into the actual content there.
Yeah,
it's just
I think we can guess.
mentioning the headline. This other one is from the Wall Street Journal, WSJ.com, Volume 33, Number 11,
Ooh.
A New Era. There you go. Volume 33.
What is that about? Is that a book or something?
It's the Style and Substance section of the Wall Street Journal.
Mm-hmm.
And they talk about under new management, and it talks about how Biden's coming in and he's going to fix things or whatever.
It's just like a worldview building article or something about moving into the future.
Yeah. I mean, style and substance.
3311.
Both. 311. Next up, we got to mention the 666.
666.
This is WXYZ.com from Detroit. This is an ABC news outlet. Headline: Frozen tomatoes thrown at I'm going to pronounce this wrong. Wyandotte family's cars. 666 written on windows and hood.
Whoa. Who are these Wyandotte family?
Well, apparently they're just a normal family hoping for answers after frozen tomatoes were thrown through the windows of several of their cars, and 666 was written on the windows, hood, and windshield of their vehicles.
Why frozen tomatoes? Why would you go through the trouble of freezing a tomato if you could just throw a rock at that point? You're basically just trying to turn fruits into rocks.
Well, because once they melt, you're gonna have more of a mess on your hands.
Okay, I get you.
Yeah. You know these people.
Sinful generation.
You know those sinful generation kids.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why they would do tomatoes and break stuff in 666.
Yeah.
So there's some disenfranchised young people, I think.
So rebellious.
Yeah, being rebellious. There you go. Next up here.
Snitches get stitches.
This was going around. TorontoSun.com, Warmington, top Ontario doctors' hot mic moment spreads fast.
This was great.
Yeah, while there may now be a needle to treat the coronavirus, there's no vaccine that can cure the dangers of a hot mic or mask the embarrassment. Dr. David Williams, Ontario's Chief Medical Officer of Health, and Dr. Barbara Yaffe, Associate Chief Medical Officer of Health, have joined the list of countless others in and around microphones who know that when something goes public that wasn't meant to, it spreads on social media far and wide. And what did they say here? Let's pay close attention, see what they say.
I don't know why I bring all these papers. I never look at them.
Well, when you're giving numbers, I go, oh. Did you really do that?
I just say whatever they write down for me.
That's why you're guessing.
There you go.
Oh, she sounds so innocent when she says that.
Oh, yeah. Why do we have all these papers? We never look at them. And then we just say what we're told, basically.
We just read what they write down for us, which on one hand, yes, is not a great look for doctors on television coming on to give their professional opinion about COVID-19. On the other hand, it is TV, and almost everything is scripted on TV. Shouldn't come as too much of a surprise.
Yeah, even this show is scripted, Basil.
We're not on TV.
Yeah,
we're on internet for now.
Interweb TV.
Yeah.
Yep. There you go. I mean, yep. Just add it to the list of blurred. What am I trying to say? Mess ups. Hot mic.
Yeah.
Lack
whoopsie daisies. Back where I come from, we call them whoopsie daisies.
Very good. Yeah. All right. Next up, I want you to take this one here.
Sure. I got a little update here from.
Oh, he stepped all over the jingle.
I didn't know you had a jingle.
You're going down, Olstein.
Okay. It's going to happen. This is coming from NewYorkPost.com. Joel Osteen's Lakewood Church received $4.4 million in COVID-19 PPP loan. And which is easy to get upset about because what in the world are they doing over there? But just to mention, multimillionaire televangelist Joel Osteen's Lakewood Church in Texas netted $4.4 million in bailouts through the federal COVID-19 relief program. Records show the Houston megachurch, the largest in the nation, with 52,000 weekly congregants, received the Forgivable Paycheck Protection Program loan in late July, the Houston Business Journal reported Sunday. The loan was the third highest in the Houston area during all of July and August, the outlet noted, citing federal data. Lakewood's PPP check was sent to 368 full and part-time employees. Spokesman Donald Iloff told the Houston Business Journal. He said in-person services that were suspended from March 15th through October 18th due to the COVID-19 pandemic impacted, quote, its ability to collect substantial donations during those services. So, it's, I will say, people, it's easy to get uproarious about Joel Osteen getting $4.4 million from the government. But I'm glad to know that 368 ministry workers, hopefully they're able to feed their kids throughout the pandemic with that.
It's about $12,000 per person if you divide it. I know it's full-time and part-time, so it's not exactly that.
Yeah.
It's 4.4 million divided by 368, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But let me do it one more time just to make sure. 368. Yeah. Just under $12,000 per person. So not as egregious as it seems, but still.
Government. Yeah, well, plus you've got all the anti-church people who just hate it when churches get any money from the government. That is interesting, though. The separation of church and state people were not very happy about churches receiving PPP loans considering their tax-exempt status. However, we got to remember that, almost 400 real people, got to feed their kids during the time.
Yeah, but also small businesses need to too. So it's a difficult thing. You're giving 4.4 million to the Lakewood Church there, but then the small churches.
Well, ain't that just how it goes? Yeah, small of my church didn't get anything from it.
Yeah, that's how it goes. The big guys win, the little guys die.
Yeah,
part of the process. Moving on here, we have an interesting update here.
You can't take the quiz.
CRISPR.
You can't take the quiz.
Cas9.
My tummy is rumbling.
Okay. This is from the FDA, FDA.gov.
Ooh.
FDA approves first of its kind intentional genomic alteration in line of domestic pigs for both human food, potential therapeutic uses.
Oh, interesting.
This is a pretty long title there, but let me read a little bit here just to get an idea of what's going on. This was released on December 14th, 2020. Today, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration approved a first-of-its-kind intentional genomic alteration, IGA, in a line of domestic pigs, referred to as GalSafe pigs, which may be used for food or human therapeutics. This is the first IGA in an animal that the FDA has approved for both human food consumption and as a source for potential therapeutic uses. The IGA in GalSafe pigs is intended to eliminate alpha-gal sugar on the surface of the pigs' cells. People with alpha-gal syndrome may have mild or severe allergic reactions to alpha-gal sugar found in red meat. And, quote, today's first ever approval of an animal biotechnology product for both food and as a potential source for biomedical use represents a tremendous milestone for scientific innovation, said FDA Commissioner Stephen M. Hahn, MD. Quote, as part of our public health mission, the FDA strongly supports advancing innovative animal biotechnology products that are safe for animals, safe for people, and achieve their intended results. Today's action underscores the success of the FDA in modernizing our scientific processes to optimize our risk-based approach and advance cutting-edge innovations in which consumers can have confidence. And it goes into some more stuff here, but very interesting, not the least of which is on the heels of Elon Musk's pig Neuralink pig experiments in the brain of pigs.
Yeah, I was going to say, happy pigs. As long as they're happy, Elon Musk is happy.
Yeah. So there you go. The FDA approving genomic alterations. And this is probably just the beginning when it comes to this type of thing. Allowing the alteration of animal genes and
not even allowing for the alteration, but deeming it safe for human consumption, which
is the next level.
Yeah, which is a whole other thing. And I wonder what these therapeutic effects they're talking about is. It's maybe some byproducts used in medicine or something.
Yeah, I think they were talking about. Here's. Let's see. Yeah, I didn't see too much. Oh, the tick bites. The condition in the U.S. The condition most often there's a condition that people get from tick bites, and they're saying that this alteration can potentially help them. So that's where the therapeutics.
Chimeras, they're coming for you.
It's like change DNA to help people.
Now,
right?
If only they were required to label it as GMO.
Oh, that's a good question. Are they gonna brand these pigs?
Yeah, I think it's been state by state so far whether you label GMO meats or not. I forgot where we landed.
Mark of the pigs.
Oh, good one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there you go. Yeah, just keep an eye on stuff because you never know how this is all gonna eventually turn out. Actually, we do. We're just tracking along.
Sure, we do.
Pretty wild that we're at this point here. I mean, this type of thing would have been big news, 4 or 5 years ago. Now it's like doesn't even get mentioned
right
by news outlets. Okay, the next one here, real quick.
It's got to be biblical.
This one from the Jerusalem Post. Oman, Indonesia, likely next countries to forge ties with Israel.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so this is this depends on some of my views about modern Israel, and not the people, but the government involved there, the Zionist regime, and how it might play a role in the end times. And in the book of Revelation, it is my opinion, and I know people might disagree with me. That's fine. My opinion that Mystery Babylon mentioned in Revelation 17 and 18 is eschatological Jerusalem, maybe not Israel or anything right now, but eschatological Jerusalem. And it talks about how the Mystery Babylon fornicates with all the kings of the world, and so this kind of plays into that. All these ties that Israel is making with the neighboring nations there. It just seems to be aligned with that type of interpretation of some of that text. And again, you don't have to agree with me on the interpretation, but just thought I'd bring it to your attention because it is kind of another feather in the cap of those who say that eschatological Jerusalem and end times Israel is part of Mystery Babylon and part of what will be a main role in how the end times unfolds with the man of sin. Many people think he's not going to be a Jewish man, but there's good evidence scripturally that he will present himself as the Jewish Messiah and protect Israel against enemies of Israel. And that'll be interesting for American evangelicals to deal with when it comes to that, because if there's a man that comes, a charismatic military leader that comes out and defends Israel against, for example, Islamic forces that surround Israel and hate Israel, American evangelicals are all about that, and that could be part of the deception. So just wanted to mention that in our updates, and moving on.
Speaking of the beast system, beast system.
Actually, that's the wrong jingle, but close enough because this is the one I wanted to bring up here.
Most modeling is kind of acting like a
beast
but making it fashion.
Beast.
But then make it fashion.
Yeah, this is coming from Toronto.citynews.ca. Canadian fashion mogul Peter Nygard charged with sex trafficking. Authorities in the United States say Canadian fashion mogul Peter Nygard has been indicted on 9 charges, including racketeering and sex trafficking. A news release from the United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, which is a very active U.S. Attorney's Office. They have brought so many. They were the ones who came after Epstein, actually, and I believe they're the ones currently handling the prosecution of Ghislaine Maxwell, which we haven't heard a lot from. But I thought this was interesting. This guy, he's being indicted on charges similar, although smaller in scope, that we saw with Epstein, although he kind of just looks like the type of guy who would be involved in some Epstein shenanigans. Unfortunately, I mean, I don't want to profile the guy or anything, but the allegations include, him using his fashion. I guess he's some big fashion designer. I didn't know much about him before this, but of course, using that to manipulate underage and abused, mostly women, I believe, into all sorts of unfortunate situations. And I'm curious if this was a Ghislaine Maxwell, if she copped to it, if she's given tips in order to get out of her own situation.
Yeah, throw some people under the bus to protect her own skin. Yeah, it's possible.
It's been a little while since there's been, an influx of info about cases or indictments or things like that stemming from the Epstein case. But I think, considering this was the same attorneys, Southern District of New York Attorney's Office that is bringing all the prosecution on the Epstein case, now coming after this guy, you have to assume that they're connected in one way or another.
Yeah. But at least they caught a guy.
Yeah.
At least there's somebody going down. And obviously, this is just when this happens, it is kind of throwing certain people under the bus and not taking down the entire thing. Just a small snippet.
Well, that's what it was. It was nice to see that this was at least, it's pretty big time guy bigger. As far as, whatever. The amounts of crimes that they're coming after him for are significantly lower than were on the Epstein case. But, everyone that gets justice is a win.
Yep. But there's more.
Speaking of the beast system, beast system.
Artificial intelligence.
This was a very interesting story. My gosh, there's so many pop-ups on this website. This is govconwire.com. Govconwire.com.
Weird.
Headline: Microsoft helps form National Council for Artificial Intelligence. Yeah, more councils is what we need.
Yes, more bureaucracy. It's the only way to save the world.
Yeah. Organizations across the U.S. financial services, technology, and academic industries, including Microsoft, have announced the formation of a new National Council for Artificial Intelligence, the NCAI.
How many of these can we possibly have?
We need more. We need more groups. The company said Friday the council will work to expand technology solutions to solve challenges within the industry. The council also includes the Brookings Institute, CUNY, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, MasterCard, NASDAQ, Plug and Play, SUNY, University of Central Florida, and Visa. Seems like Visa and MasterCard, they're popping up everywhere.
Yeah, they really have.
All kinds of different things they're getting their fingers into.
Yeah, they're getting involved with, actually, it was a comment blocked by producer Mark, I think, talking about MasterCard and Visa suddenly being so concerned about certain porn sites and the possibility of trafficking happening, which is a weird thing for MasterCard and Visa to be I don't know, getting involved with.
Mm-hmm. Quote, the goal of the newly created NCAI is to establish a pragmatic coalition with public-private partnerships, always seems to come up, in the financial services sector to identify and address significant societal and industry barriers, said Gretchen O'Hara, Vice President of AI and Sustainability Strategy, Microsoft US. Again, this is part of the Great Reset. We're actually seeing all these organizations put together these councils and different moves. We've been reporting on a whole bunch of these things going on for the last several episodes. And it's the Great Reset. You know, everyone's kind of waiting for this moment. But it's like, no, this is a slow rolling thing, and it's happening very quietly almost. You know, the big announcement of the reset, but then, you know, the Visa, MasterCard, and Federal Reserve being involved in a bunch of this stuff is a dead giveaway that this is part of the Great Reset. And, you know, more bureaucracy to control AI, or at least keep a tab on AI and include
allegedly.
Allegedly. That's what they're saying. But having included these economic juggernauts as part of the discussion is definitely a telltale sign that this is a part of the reset. And of course, Microsoft leading the way. I'm sure they have the best interest of humanity in mind by putting together this council.
Oh yeah.
They want to help humans.
Yes, of course.
AI system.
And why not, put people in charge like credit card companies?
And the Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
Real trustworthy people.
They've always had our best interest in mind. Okay, I got one last update before we start getting into some longer stories here.
Speaking of the beast system, beast system.
Coming from biometricupdate.com. Mexico approves rollout of national biometric digital ID card, putting them on the list of companies coming out with not just digital...
A country?
What did I say? Companies? Yeah, countries.
Which is... That's a really interesting slip up because it does speak to what's taking place right now.
Yeah.
With the Facebook thing we talked about at the beginning here. But anyway, go
on. So yes, Mexico approves rollout of national biometric digital ID card. The Chamber of Deputies in Mexico has approved the creation of a new general law on population, human mobility, and interculturality, paving the way for a new national digital ID system. Forbes Mexico reports. The new law, which passed with 426 votes in favor, 3 abstentions, and 1 against. Who is this one against? Will enable the Ministry of the Interior to create a database with the personal data of Mexicans, including biometrics. A Cédula Única de Identidad Digital will also be created and will become the official identification document for all Mexicans. The new digital ID will be issued by the Mexican Secretariat for Home Affairs to the entire population of the country, as well as to Mexicans residing abroad. Citizens will be able to exhibit the document either in physical format or through electronic devices. The cédula will be free and will contain citizens' names, surnames, date of birth, place of birth, nationality, and biometric data, together with a unique population registration key number. Wow, that's like the scariest thing you could call that, population registration key. According to the Yucatan Times, the new digital ID will also contain information related to the certificate number of disability when applicable and self-inscription as a member of the indigenous peoples or Afro-Mexican population. Representative Cesar Agustin Fernandez Perez said the cédula will enable the government to address demographic changes, mortality, fertility, and international migration. The socio-demographic information and statistics will help lawmakers formulate public policies in the best interest of the country, Morena added. The Cédula Única de Identidad Digital will currently not replace voters' cards or passports. Mexico is currently adopting biometric applications at an increasingly rapid rate. In August, for example, Santander Mexico rolled out integrated biometrics fingerprint scanners to register millions of customers. In the same month, Invixium formed a distribution partnership with Ciasa to bring biometric access control products to the Mexican market. Now, I read that whole thing, Gons, because what is missing?
I don't know.
Vaccinations.
Oh.
They don't even mention that your digital identification profile, it'll have every single thing about you, and it happens to be coming right at the moment when vaccinations are going to be rolling out worldwide, and noticeably, they did not mention vaccination data. So that'll be interesting, whether that was a lie of omission or what.
Yeah, I was thinking more. That's a good point you brought up. Nice observation. I was thinking about the cartel. You know, what are they going to do? Are the government's just going to turn a blind eye to the cartel, let them keep doing what they're doing? Or are we moving into an official digital cyber, special ID for them?
Well, you know,
continue with their work.
I'm sure they'll be in the same system as everyone else. But, you know, an interesting, comparison to make or angle as well is, of course, with immigration to the United States. If all Mexicans are registered with this digital ID, you know, I could see how maybe somehow the United States would be involved in pushing this forward. Interesting how it was almost unanimously voted in their lawmaking procedures there, with one lonely nay in the sea of yays and a couple absentees.
And he will get a phone call and a knock at the door.
Yes.
In the next few days.
It was the
capitulate or die.
You know, it is interesting regarding your cartel angle as well, is, you know, famously, and this is not strictly reserved for Mexico, if this happens all over the world, but, you know, famously, Mexican lawmakers being on the payroll for certain cartels, you know, that would go a long way to explain a unanimous vote, nearly unanimous vote. And, so regarding your comment about the cartels, sounds like they're all for it.
Yeah, and the exchange of digital identification information between nations will be very interesting. Yeah, depending on who's in charge here in the U.S.
It might be another selling point for a U.S. version of this. You know, Mexico has it, so we must create something interoperable and could be used as a conservative talking point as well, pro digital ID. You know, well, we must be able to compare databases with Mexico for illegal immigration purposes.
Yeah, and Trump will come out and say, "We'll build a wall. It'll be a digital wall.
We will launch into
It's a firewall.
It's a firewall."
I don't know what that means, but it sounds hot.
It's hot. Your Trump is kind of weird sounding, but anyway,
it's the Alex. What's his name? Who did the Saturday Night Live version of Trump?
Oh, Alec Baldwin.
Alec Baldwin. That's Alec Baldwin doing Trump. Not
so
Trump.
Basil doing Alec Baldwin doing Trump.
Yes.
We're getting way down the rabbit trail.
Yes, that's what it is.
Okay, well, those are the updates, which took us an hour. But hey, there's a lot of updates. There's a lot of stories, and we want to make sure we at least touch on the things out there to let you guys know.
Yes, real quick. I'm sorry, I don't want to butt in. Mentioned by producer Mark, but a Digi ID still won't be required to vote, specifically in Mexico. And that's the thing, you know, they love documenting every person, not just Mexico, but governments around the world. But when it comes to securing a voting system, they want nothing to do with it. Coincidence. You know, given the story we just read about the digital ID in Mexico, I'm wondering if I should read through the Canary Cry Dutchman's email. It's connected.
Which one's the Canary Cry Dutchman?
Lloyd.
Oh, you mean Lloyd?
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't you do that now?
Yeah, I'll just
Might as
do
well.
this real quick. This was from our official Canary Cry Dutchman. Thank you, producer Lloyd. Dear Basil and Gons, hereby I deliver to you another quick Rona update sent to you from the eastern part of Sodom. Yesterday evening at 7 p.m., Dutch local time President Mark Rutte held his Rona speech. Like I mentioned in my previous update, the Dutch government announced in cooperation with the RIVM, it's a Dutch WHO clone, that all non-essential businesses will be closed until further notice. Not even an end date on that. I hate that. In the Netherlands, we have a digital social security system called DigiD, short for digital ID. This system links all your personal information like social security number, home address, etc. into one government app. Today, a Dutch news show announced that DigiD will also record which vaccine has been administered to you. None in my case, he says. And that you can use this as proof of getting a vaccine. They said that you'll need to show this as proof if you want to go to a concert or travel via airplane. So basically, that sums up to any place where you're close to other people for a longer period of time. As an excuse for recording the vaccine per person, they told that they'll be using it to better monitor the side effects. Of course, we saw very similar apps coming out here of the different vaccines on different guinea pigs. Oh, I mean people. Thanks for the great show. I'll keep you posted. God bless, Lloyd. Thank you very much, producer Lloyd. And so there you go. Similar systems being put in place in the Netherlands and Mexico. I am... on one hand, of course, we're all very worried about a digital, all-encompassing digital ID in the United States. But, you know, I got to give us credit. We've held off this long when many other countries in the world have not been able to deflect the digital ID tsunami.
Yeah, you know, the only thing I can think of when... producer Lloyd mentioned the DigiD or whatever. Mm-hmm. It would be hilarious. I could just picture somebody, and people in the chat are already kind of touching on it. They ask for your DigiD, and you just bust out the didgeridoo. And
wow, you just had a didgeridoo sound effect ready.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Where's your DigiD?
You've never once ever played a didgeridoo sound, and you just had it ready.
Hey, I'm quick.
You're
on
good.
The trigger here.
That's why you're a pro. Yeah. Okay, so there you go. I just thought that was a good spot for that email there.
Yeah, that I want to see that happen. That'll be our rebellion. That'll be the sign that you know that they're on your side.
Yeah, should we
bust out the didgeridoo?
Should we make a Canary Cry branded didgeridoo we can sell on the website?
There you go. Yep, that's going to put us on the map.
Yeah. Do you want to bring the next story or?
Yep, let's do it.
Okay.
This is we got a couple things concerning masks.
If you're working alone, wear a mask. The mask's not for you. It's to protect the people you care about.
I'm sorry. I don't want to interrupt, but I have to. I mean to mention after the updates, just to give everybody a reminder, if you've enjoyed the show so far, please give a thumbs up on YouTube or wherever you're watching. It really helps spread the show, convince the algorithms that we're worth letting other people watch. Now that we've got our listener count has risen a little bit, don't forget the thumbs up. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you. Okay. This is from Reuters.com. Wearing someone else's face. Hyper-realistic masks to go on sale in Japan.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Hyper-realistic.
Baby. Oh, yeah. That's not creepy at all if you're watching on the screen there. A year into the coronavirus epidemic, a Japanese retailer has come up with a new take on the theme of facial camouflage. A hyper-realistic mask that models a stranger's features in 3 dimensions.
What?
And if you're watching the video here, it is
creepy. My gosh, that is terrifying.
It makes you look like a digital, like kind of a deep fake in real life.
Yeah, you look like, not the deep fake. What is it called? Oh, what is that company that was making the digital people? I forget. Anyways, yes, very realistic. And I'm assuming that they count as, now is this like a real company or is this an art project?
I think there's a real company, Shohei Okawara.
You got a link? Christmas is coming up. I need one of these.
Shohei Okawara's masks won't protect you or others against the virus, but they will lend you the exact appearance of an unidentified Japanese adult whose features have been printed onto them.
Oh my gosh.
Mask shops, this is a quote, mask shops in Venice probably do not buy or sell faces, but that is something that's likely to happen in fantasy stories, Okawara told Reuters. Quote, I thought it would be fun to actually do that. Fun.
Basil's True Love in the chat says Basil can be a POC. I can be a person of color too.
Finally. The masks will go on sale early next year for 98,000 yen. That's about $950 a piece.
Okay.
To his Tokyo shop, Kamenya Omote, whose products are popular as accessories for parties and theatrical performances. So there you go. They are kind of meant for that stuff. But this one in particular is, I guess, coming into use for this particular reason. Okawara chose his model, whom he paid 40,000 yen from more than 100 applicants who sent him their photos when he launched the project in October.
Wow. So the people whose face it actually is, who will now be, identified on facial recognition cameras all over Japan, got half as much. They got paid $500 basically, and he's selling each one for 900. So, okay. Well, yeah, he's a frugal businessman.
An artisan then reworked the winning image created on a 3D printer. Initial inquiries suggested demand for the masks will be strong, Okawara said. As is often, this is a quote, as is often the case with the customers of my shop, there are not so many people who buy face masks for specific purposes. Most see them as art pieces. He plans to gradually add new faces, including some from overseas, to the lineup. So,
some from overseas. There we go. Maybe I just had a thought, which is I could get my face made, just add it to his inventory there. And then I'm, of course, the hope would be that my face would be worn by thousands of people across the world, getting read by facial recognition cameras, and then it would become like a Guy Fawkes mask. It'd have to have big googly eyes on it, but
this I do want to throw in a little wrench here. This might become much more handy than you think, especially with a story here that came out on nextgov.com a few days ago. Intel agencies seek to perfect biometric recognition from drones.
Oh,
and they're basically saying that facial recognition is a main part of this is perfected by IARPA, Intelligence Advanced Research Projects activity, to use drones to identify people from far away. And the solicitation call notes facial recognition has, quote, increasingly become the biometric modality best suited for intelligence community and DoD missions. But this Japanese guy said, not so fast. Will not identify me.
It's like deep fakes in real life.
Yeah. Pretty crazy. But it's creepy, but also it's kind of like, yeah, I could see myself using a fake face. And then if you put on a hat or a beanie or something, and then a mask, like a face, like a face mask type thing,
or wear a hoodie or something.
Yeah, wear a hoodie. You're definitely not going to be easily identified.
Yeah, where you won't see the sort of sides of the mask either. It'll just Well, I got a story about masks.
If you're working alone, wear a mask. The mask's not for you. It's to protect the people you care about.
NewYorkPost.com, the article's titled, Wearing a Used Mask Could Be Worse Than No Mask Amid COVID-19 Study. Wearing a used mask could be more dangerous than not wearing one at all when it comes to warding off COVID-19, a new study has found. A new 3-layer surgical mask is 65% efficient in filtering particles in the air, but when used, that number drops to 25%, according to the study published Tuesday in the Physics of Fluids. Researchers from the University of Massachusetts Lowell and California Baptist University say that masks slow down airflow, making people more susceptible to breathing in particles. And a dirty face mask can't effectively filter out the tiniest of droplets. Quote, it is natural to think that wearing a mask, no matter new or old, should always be better than nothing. That's what Dr. Fauci told us, said author Xingzheng Ji. Quote, our results show that this belief is only true for particles larger than 5 micrometers, but not for fine particles smaller than 2.5 micrometers. Will you look up COVID size real quick, just so we can compare that? To reach their findings, researchers used a computer model of a person wearing a pleated, of course, it has to be a computer model, okay, wearing a pleated 3-layer surgical mask to track how the face covering affected airflow and how particles passed through. They also looked at how tiny droplets settled onto the face in the airway and where they land in the nose, pharynx, and deep lung. They found that wearing a mask significantly slows down airflow, reducing a mask's efficacy and making a person more susceptible to inhaling aerosols into the nose, where SARS-CoV-2 likes to lurk. Quote, in this study, we found that the protective efficacy of a mask for the nasal airway decreases at lower inhalation flow rates, the study said. Let me read that again. In this study, we found that the protective efficacy of a mask for the nasal airway decreases at lower inhalation flow rates. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. So they say a mask inherently slows your breathing rate, of course, and at these slower breathing rates, your mask isn't very effective. The pleats of a face mask also significantly affect airflow patterns, and their efficacy changes with more use, the researchers found. The team plans to study how mask shapes affect protection from COVID-19. Quote, we hope public health authorities strengthen the current preventative measures to curb COVID-19 transmission, like choosing a more effective mask, wearing it properly for the highest protection, and avoid using an excessively used expired surgical mask, said Xi. A couple things on this. I feel like number one, just right off the bat, that this, I'm wondering if this study was funded by one-time mask manufacturers.
Yeah, it's possible.
Stop reusing our masks. Buy more masks.
Buy more. Yeah, this is the light bulb thing. What's the conspiracy with the light bulbs?
Oh gosh.
I forget what it's called.
Yeah, no, I know what it's called. We are pausing the show until I can figure planned obsolescence.
Planned obsolescence.
Yes,
Thank you.
Where they build in a fail rate to their thing, so you keep buying more.
According to the USA Today fact-checking, COVID-19 virus particle size is 125 nanometers, which is 0.125 microns or micrometers.
Oh, good. So
literally,
they're just repeating the fact that these masks are significantly too small to have any effect on COVID-19.
Yeah, so larger than 5. So 5 divided by 0.12. 40 times. Yeah, 40 times
smaller than the smallest effective rate that these masks can protect you against. That makes sense. Nothing to see here, folks. Well, you know, it's interesting how they make this whole article about how ineffective specifically reusing masks are. So go buy more masks, people. But by the way, the price of masks has gone out of control. I haven't bought any, but I saw some in the store. It was 15 masks for $40.
Gosh.
Yeah, it was crazy. Anyways. moving on. The quote at the end, we hope public health authorities strengthen the current preventative measures to curb COVID-19 transmission, like choosing a more effective mask, wearing it properly for the highest protection, and avoid using an excessively used or expired surgical mask. You know where I also think that this will be used as a case for is government mandated like an actual government mask, like the mask.
Oh, yeah. None
of this making your own masks. None of this, just put a sock over your nose. None of this stuff. They gave you some freedom at the beginning so you could kind of choose, make it a fashion statement. But, oh no, by the way, those are literally not doing anything. So now that you're used to wearing masks, here's the government mandated official mask that we can fine you for not wearing.
Yeah, especially once the 100 days of mask wearing is implemented by alleged president-elect.
How is that a good thing? Like, it's just crazy. Anyways, I don't want to get stuck on masks here, but it's very interesting studies coming out.
Yep. Okay, we got a few vaccine updates here.
Vaccine.
This was originally published on WAPO, but I ran into a paywall, so I'm going to report it from BGR.com.
Huzzah.
Here's what we know about the new coronavirus mutation that's spreading rapidly. And I'll read the bullet points here. I guess we can't go into the article, but the bullet points have UK health officials have discovered a new coronavirus mutation that is spread rapidly in the UK.
Ooh.
Neither researchers nor health officials know whether the strain is more infectious or whether it might complicate matters with vaccines and COVID-19 immunity. Scientists have said the new strain actually carries 17 distinct genetic changes, most of them impacting the spike protein that the virus uses to infect cells. Antibodies created after infection or vaccination target the spike protein, so any major changes to that protein might impact COVID-19 immunity. Oh, how convenient that they release a vax to everybody, and then right away we have a mutation that may even threaten the vaccine efficacy there. So, oh man,
the timing is perfect.
Oh my gosh!
Here's the vaccine. It doesn't do anything, but not because it's a bad one, just because the disease is so devious.
And I also think it's interesting how with the vaccine, especially in the UK rolling out, all these people that are probably going to have some pretty crazy side effects, and even maybe get infected anyway.
Right.
To mitigate that whole crisis, why don't we just tell everybody that there's a mutation out there too, just to scare people? So the timing of it all just seems very suspicious.
I get a lot of Instagram ads for masks, different masks. A lot of companies coming out with more permanent type masks made of plastic and different respirators and, full helmets. We've had some of them on the show. I'm waiting for one that has like a little microphone on the inside and a speaker, or maybe like a voice to skull interface where you can just beam your voice right into people's brains.
So we can start sounding like the Mandalorians or stormtroopers.
Yes, exactly. We'll all be sounding like stormtroopers.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I got another story here from you. Speaking of Vax Week over in the UK.
Psyops.
That's right. Last week was the first week of vaccinations in the UK. We haven't started in the United States, right? Where they were threatening to start this week, but I don't think it's actually started. They're still shipping them out, huh?
Yeah, I guess. We'll see. We'll hear about it for sure once everyone starts getting the jab.
So this is coming from CNBC.com, and in a headline that is surprising to literally no one, Pfizer's CEO hasn't gotten his COVID vaccine yet, saying he doesn't want to cut in line. Oh,
okay.
Oh, what a moral and ethical, upstanding big pharma CEO caring about the little guy. It's a good excuse. If I was the Pfizer CEO, that's the excuse that I would have paid my PR people to come up with too. Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla hasn't received his company's COVID-19 vaccine shot yet, saying Monday he and other executives will not, quote, cut the line as U.S. officials kick off a massive effort to distribute the vaccines across the country. The vaccine, which Pfizer developed in partnership with Germany-based BioNTech, is the first approved for emergency use in the U.S. to prevent COVID-19. The Food and Drug Administration on Friday authorized the vaccine for use in people 16 and older. And the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention on Sunday officially recommended its use. However, there are limited doses available, and as such, the CDC has recommended states prioritize healthcare workers and long-term care residents for initial distribution, with the exception of Pennsylvania's biggest healthcare system, who will not be taking the vaccine. While Bourla's company developed the vaccine, he is not a frontline health worker himself. He said he's also 59 and in relatively good health, so it's not entirely appropriate for him to receive the vaccine before other people who need it more. If he was vaccinated on camera, he said it might help increase the public's willingness to receive it. No, citing Pfizer's internal research. But he emphasized that, quote, none of the executives and board members will cut the line. Bourla also urged Americans to basically what he's saying there is, oh, it would really help out the public, optics on the vaccine if me and my other executives got it. We could get other people to take it and save more lives. But, oh, man, we're not going to do that because we don't want to. Bourla also urged Americans to trust science and encourage people to get vaccinated when appropriate based on their age and occupation. Quote, this is a vaccine that was developed without cutting corners from a company with 171 years of credentials, Bourla said Monday on Squawk Box. This is a vaccine that was developed in the spotlight, in the daylight, with all the data being put in a server. What does that have to do with anything?
Doesn't make it
all the data was put in a server, so it's fine.
These people think either they are unintelligent or they think the rest of us are really unintelligent or something. I mean,
I think maybe he doesn't know what a server is.
Probably not, but wasn't Pfizer the one that didn't publish any of their data until they started rolling out the vaccines in the UK and everything?
Yeah, they still haven't released all the data, and they're the ones who they're not the ones saying it, but people keep saying that there was no adverse events during their trials, and there was a bunch of adverse events.
Including people that died.
Yes.
2 specifically that died, and then 4 more that died, but they didn't die from the vaccine.
Trust
they
the
died.
science, Guns. Trust the
They
science.
got the placebo. So yeah. Anyway, go on.
Bourla's comments come as the first deliveries of doses are set to arrive at more than 100 of the countries. I did it again. I can't. That's what it is.
It's
I'm
all
telling you,
merging into one thing.
That's true. They're all the same to me. 100 of the country's 636 predetermined. Dang, so close on that one.
I know, just 30 more.
636.
Oh, 33 more. No, I'm sorry, 30 more.
Yeah, 30 more.
Bad math.
Predetermined distribution sites. Some frontline healthcare workers are due to be vaccinated as soon as Monday morning. And vaccination is set to begin among long-term care residents next week, according to Operation Warp Speed officials. So allegedly, some people were supposed to get vaccinated 2 days ago. Have you heard anything about this?
A little bit. I mean, I just heard the FDA approval, and remember we talked
about there's no televised vaccination of healthcare workers, is there?
Not yet. I don't know. Maybe there was. Maybe the chat can tell us.
Is there secret vaccinations that they're not telling us about?
Maybe, I don't know. But I'm still waiting for Bush Jr., Obama, and Clinton coming out. Hey.
Yeah, I know. Hold on here. Epony Blaze, that's producer Charlie. I just emailed you an article about the first vax. Okay, pulling it up now. Thank you, producer Charlie. MarketWatch.com. Watch. Relieved Americans applaud as Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine rolls out across the country. You want to jump on that link and put it on the stream real quick?
It's already up, buddy.
Oh, you're so fast. Well, the problem is I don't have a live stream. Oh, I could, though, if I paid attention. Okay, here we go. As the U.S. death toll from the coronavirus pandemic neared 300,000 on Monday, video and images of the first doses of the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine being delivered and administered gave people a shot of hope. In Queens, New York, Northwell health nurse Sandra Lindsay became the first person in the U.S. to receive the coronavirus vaccine. What is the date on this? This was 2 days ago. This was Monday, which just received emergency use authorization from the Food and Drug Administration on Friday. Video footage of the critical care nurse getting the long-awaited inoculation went viral on Twitter on Monday morning. Not that viral. I didn't get it. Quote, "It didn't feel any different from taking any other vaccine," said Lindsay, who received the shot, to a round of applause. Oh, clap, please clap. Quote, "I feel hopeful today, relieved," she added while speaking to journalists at Long Island Jewish Medical Center in New York. And her fellow Americans have been sharing those feelings on social media since the first of nearly 3 million doses of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine started shipping out on Sunday. Onlookers also cheered as FedEx and UPS delivery trucks left the Pfizer facility in Portage, Michigan, near Kalamazoo at around 8:25 a.m. local time on Sunday. Can you say manufactured news story?
Yeah.
How would these regular people know exactly when the UPS and FedEx trucks carrying the vaccines would be rolling out of the distribution facility?
This whole thing and the video that they have here, it's got like Cuomo on a live stream and
you gotta have Cuomo.
Yeah, the shots going in and stuff. This is like scientific virtue signaling because nobody in the public knows what's actually in the syringe there. There's no way to verify as a public.
Much less the FedEx truck pulling out.
The FedEx truck. But yeah, this is a lot of signaling going on, and it's just a big show. It's pretty ridiculous.
Of course it is. Well, and they're saying it right here, talking over and over about how this gave hope to the American people. Well, I mean, you can say that. I don't know anybody who got hope from this after all the negative feedback about it in the UK. Oh. If you have any allergies, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, you know what? Now that I think about it, let's see. I think there was a headline that talked about no side effects from vaccine like a day after. And it was like, it's been 1 day.
Right.
Like the concerns aren't like, oh, people are just going to keel over and die the next day from a vaccine. It's
no side effects except for the anaphylactic shock.
Right. Right. And perhaps the palsy that we'll get to in a moment.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
It's just, man, this is really bothersome. The amount of propaganda that is surrounding this whole thing.
And the biggest thing is just the lying. Like, whatever you feel about vaccines, that's how you feel. That's okay. It doesn't affect me very much. But just the blatant disregard for the scientific information. They just ignore yesterday's news and make up the new news for the day. And with that said, we should go on to the next story here.
If you're wearing a mask, it's a different.
It's not science. Okay, this is USA Today. COVID-19 vaccine trials report cases of brief facial paralysis. That's not as scary as it sounds.
There's no side effects, Gons. Haven't you heard?
It's not as scary as it sounds, though, Basil. I know it sounds scary having your face paralyzed by a vaccine, but just rest assured, science is truth.
Science is truth.
Don't listen to the naysayers and the crazy conspiracy theorists because it's safe. Americans are increasingly concerned about vaccine safety after 4 people in Pfizer-BioNTech trials And 3 people in the Moderna trials developed Bell's palsy, a condition that causes temporary
no side effects.
No side effects. Temporary weakness or paralysis of the facial muscles. While it may sound scary, experts say Bell's palsy is more common and less severe than people think. Bell's palsy, also known as peripheral facial nerve palsy, can occur at any age, according to the Mayo Clinic. The exact causes are unknown.
So it's totally fine. It can occur at any time.
The exact causes are unknown, but it's believed to be the result of swelling and inflammation of the nerve that controls the muscles on one side of the face, or a reaction after a viral infection. It's on here. Dr. Anthony Geraci, Northwell Health's director of neuromuscular medicine in Great Neck, New York, says at least 2 Bell's palsy patients visit his office a month, and they always recover within several weeks. Quote, 90%, if not more, of patients who have Bell's palsy experience a mild, transient weakness of the side of the face, which is completely resolved within 3 months, the majority within a month and a half, he said. It's a relatively benign condition. Let me stop for a moment there.
Yes, I shared this with you before the show. They are making a big point about making Bell's palsy sound basically harmless. But my grandmother actually died of Bell's palsy, and it was far from the relaxed, benign thing that they're making it sound like here. I think this was pretty insulting to hear.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm just doing some quick searches here to see what the death rate is from Bell's palsy, and I'm not getting
and it's interesting too, because when my grandmother got Bell's palsy, all of us in the family were doing a bunch of research about Bell's palsy, and you know what? I don't know what Google algorithm I was on, but I did not find anything about it being so harmless, and don't worry, it'll just go away. So this, I don't know. I don't have the Wayback Machine information, and maybe for some reason Google didn't want me to get my hopes up about my grandmother not dying of this. But this info about Bell's palsy being a 2-week condition is news to me.
Interesting. Well, that's what they're making it sound like. It's no big deal. According to the Mayo Clinic, symptoms of Bell's palsy may include rapid onset of mild weakness to total paralysis on one side of the face, facial droop, pain around the jaw or behind the ears, increased sensitivity to sound, headache, a loss of taste, and changes. A loss of taste. Interesting. That's a
classic COVID symptom.
Yeah, and changes in the amount of tears and saliva produced. So you can cry, but nobody will know you're crying.
Oh, God.
Or you're crying about everything. I don't know if it dries you out or makes you cry more, but Geraci says most of his patients experience mild to moderate symptoms that could include numbness or tingling to the tongue, or maybe an off-kilter smile, or less blinking in one eye than the other. Anyway, no big deal, guys. Don't worry about it. And, one of the things to keep in mind, too, according to publicly available information, this Pfizer trial, I think it was like 30 to 40,000 people that were tested or whatever. They did not test it on people that had other, highly susceptible to, being allergic to things and stuff like that. They didn't test it on people that have other issues. And remember, early on in the UK, they said, hey, if you have a severe allergic reaction to things, don't take it. And it's just one of those things. It's like, don't you want to know how it affects people that might have other problems before you start rolling it out there, and then only tell the people?
That's what they're doing now.
That's what I'm saying.
That's
it's
what
ridiculous.
The mass rollout is really just a big beta test.
Yeah, it's just, oh man, it's troubling. This is very troubling.
But don't worry, there's no adverse effects.
Yeah, it's not as scary as it sounds, guys. Your face is just going to be numb for like 3 months. But other than that, hey, down with the Ronas, am I right?
Crazy. It's just craziness. This isn't even conspiracy theory. We're just reading the news.
Yeah, and just so people watching or viewing or listening don't have any doubts about this, I have the actual document screenshotted here from the FDA. The link is available. I'll throw it in the chat real quick. But yeah, this paper does actually say the reports. Well, I'm not going to read the whole thing here. Bell's palsy was reported by 4 vaccine participants and none in the placebo group, which would make sense.
Okay.
That means that the vaccine did cause this. These cases occurred at 3, 9, 37, and 48 days after the vaccination.
Oh, wow. That's a long time. So that could occur at any, that's not just something like they said, took the vaccine yesterday, feeling fine. Go get it, everybody.
That's what I'm saying. It's like
up to a month later, you could develop Bell's palsy.
One case onset at 3 days post-vaccination was reported as resolved with sequelae within 3 days after onset, and the other 3 were reported as continuing or resolving as of the November 14th, 2020 data cutoff with ongoing durations of 10, 15, and 21 days respectively. So if I'm reading that correctly, it was resolved as of the day they cut off the data?
Oh, interesting.
Meaning like, we're just going to say it resolved because, hey, we're not collecting data.
Oh, that's very interesting.
I don't know.
Wow.
But it does say 10, 15, 21 days respectively.
Yeah.
The observed frequency of reported Bell's palsy in the vaccine group is consistent with the expected background rate in the general population. So don't worry about it. It's the expected rate with the population.
Yeah.
And there's no clear basis upon which to conclude a causal relationship at this time. Okay. Didn't they say they don't know what causes Bell's palsy to begin with?
Yeah. Well, we know
what causes it.
We know one thing that causes it.
Oh my gosh! But FDA will recommend surveillance for cases with Bell's palsy with deployment of the vaccine into larger populations.
Wow.
So that's directly from the FDA there.
Okay. Thanks, FDA.
Yeah. Anyway, don't worry, guys.
No adverse side effects.
No adverse side effects. It's not a big deal. It's not as scary as it sounds.
Yeah. Well, speaking of which, I'm got another article here for you.
Okay. There you go.
Thanks.
Go for it.
Doing it. This is also from the New York Post. A lot of New York Post today. America's oldest newspaper. Most Americans will likely get a COVID-19 vaccine, survey says. Let's just check in with the surveys here. 7 out of 10 Americans say they will, quote, definitely or probably get a COVID-19 vaccine, a new survey has found. The new statistic, 71%, is a considerable jump from September when 63% said they'd get the jab. Now American outlets are calling it the jab. This is crazy.
No, I noticed that. And I think there was an article that mentioned that as well, that America was mentioning it as the jab.
Weird.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's because they started with it in the UK. So the UK kind of, got to take control of the language. And now suddenly the jab is being used in America. I know that's a normal thing in the UK to call getting a shot, but calling it the jab in America has some pretty negative rhetorical connotations. Like that is inherently a negative term. So it's very strange that they're trying to flip-flop that on us as a good thing. Yeah.
Co-opt the language.
Well, it's the same thing. Language has done more evolving in 2020 than it has in the past 10 years, I think. Anyways, continuing. The new statistic, 71%, is a considerable jump from September when 63% said they'd get the jab. I don't like that. According to the poll Tuesday from the Kaiser Family Foundation, the nonprofit health research organization surveyed 1,676 adults. That doesn't seem like enough to me, but amid fears from the experts that not enough Americans trust the coronavirus vaccine, Dr. Anthony Fauci, they always have to say
Daddy Fauci.
Dr. Daddy Fauci, the nation's top infectious disease expert, has said around 75 to 80% of the population would need to be vaccinated to achieve herd immunity. That's actually not quite true. because you need about 80% of the population to create herd immunity. Yeah. But that's not counting the people who have already had the disease and built up their own immunity to it.
You can get it twice, Basil. Didn't you know this? It mutates.
I know. I keep saying I say that too. We've reported on that. But I was recently told, so I guess I'd have to fact check this, that it was only like 10 people or something that have got it twice. Some minuscule number.
Right, I've heard that too.
Yeah. So anyways, I mean, you should be able to take the amount, if it's 70% that get vaccinated and then add the people who already have built an immunity, that should reach about 80%, maybe. I don't know.
By the way, the 1,676 adults that were surveyed for this to get the 7 out of 10 Americans.
Yeah.
I know it's not all adults, but just comparing it to the American population, that is 0.0005% of the United States population.
No,
so,
that's like a neighborhood. That's that's nothing. It's just a small amount of people. 27% of those recently surveyed said they would definitely or probably not get vaccinated. Quote, this group is disproportionately made up of Republicans. Of course, we got to point this out. This group is disproportionately made up of Republicans and of people with no more than a high school level education, Kaiser said in a statement. Black Americans, people living in rural areas, and Republicans were among the most hesitant about getting the shot. That's racist. They just said, anyways. But their reasons varied according to the report. Quote, some black adults are hesitant for reasons that could change with more information, the report said. Around 71% of those who say they won't get the vaccine said they're concerned about possible side effects, while about 50% of the group fear they could get the virus. For Republicans, 57% of those surveyed cited, quote, the risks of COVID-19 are being exaggerated as a major reason they definitely or probably would not get the vaccine. Quote, many Americans who are hesitant are simply reserving judgment before they are ready to get vaccinated. However, nearly 1 in 4 Republicans don't want to get vaccinated because they don't believe COVID poses a serious threat, said Molly Ann Brody, executive vice president of the Kaiser Family Foundation, according to CNN. I wonder if we should do a quick rundown of the Kaiser Family Foundation. Liz Hamel, director of Kaiser's Public Opinion Survey Research Program, said messaging will be critical to instill confidence in the vaccine. Quote, based on our data, what happens... Notice? Okay. So Liz Hamel said messaging will be critical to instill confidence in the vaccine. I don't know if that's quite true, Liz. I don't think it's all about brainwashing and messaging to people, because so far the messaging is no adverse side effects. Don't worry, perfectly safe. Nothing to see here, folks. That's the messaging, when in fact the data shows that your face can go paralyzed and you can die of anaphylaxis and. So your messaging, I don't give nothing. I don't give nothing, Liz, about your messaging. And this is, there's one hidden sort of, what is the word? I don't know. So it's insulting. There's a hidden insult in this, which is it's the messaging that's critical to instill confidence, and not the science the data that is critical to instill confidence. And that's where a lot of this quote unquote messaging is getting wrong, because they think they can just message people into confidence, when the people who don't have confidence, it's based on the data, the science of the vaccine and the results of the trials. That's what takes away confidence in the vaccine. The thought that you Kaiser, what is it called? Kaiser Medical something or other. Where is it?
Kaiser Family Foundation.
Kaiser Family Foundation. The idea that you can just message, quote unquote, brainwash people into having confidence in the vaccine is insulting to those who actually pay attention to the science and the data and decide for themselves it's not a risk they want to take. So that's all I have to say about that. Quote, based on our data, what happens in this initial rollout is going to be critically important in both how smoothly it rolls out, but also how those reports get filtered out to the media and what people's different media sources are telling them about how that initial rollout goes. Well, what was the media outlet that told us about the face paralysis? Oh, that was MSN. Okay, what's the, I can scroll down in our thing and find the outlet that told us about the anaphylaxis. I'm pretty sure that was a mainstream source as well. So this is just a highly insulting, and it's not insulting if you don't think about it. But if you're the type of person who pays attention, not just to the data and the science of the vaccine, but also if you are, if you know the tricks to look at the media analysis and see when they're lying to you, sometimes lying without lying, sometimes lying by omission, and sometimes just straight up putting insults in friendly language. So there you go. Anyways. What were we talking about? Oh, yeah. Most Americans will likely get a COVID-19 vaccine. That's fine. Yeah. You can go get it.
The name Kaiser in German is the word for emperor.
Oh, good.
So
good.
Kaiser
family. The emperor's family.
German king.
Trust
German
them.
Kings, the Nazi 2.0.
Yeah, of course. Now I know that. Who is the Kaiser family? Is that a family or like, is that somebody's last name?
Yeah. There's a Kaiser family. I remember them as part of the, they're part of the big, I don't know that they're part of the bloodlines, but they're definitely involved in some history here in the U.S. and the world when it comes to control and.
I'm seeing
Kaiser's family. So I'm seeing this foreignpolicy.com article.
Mm-hmm.
The Kaiser's family wants its stuff back. Germany isn't sure they deserve it. Former royal family lost countless artworks. I don't know if this is the same. It's got to be the same. Kaiser.
No, Kaiser's family. They're probably talking about the former emperor or king or Kaiser of Germany. Because interesting. I don't have the exact dates. I can pull it up though. Germany, in its current state, in its current sort of democratic state, is very young. They've had like Kaisers up until fairly recently. I think, well, I don't want to speak out of turn here, so I might look it up. But I spent some time looking at the political history of Germany, and in its current form, I believe it might be one of the youngest countries in the world. I might look that up while we do something else. But
highlighting the stuff. Also, got Kaiser Soze from The Usual Suspects.
Oh, classic. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, the Kaiser Family Foundation, they don't just have like a website we can read from.
We can. We'll get to it.
Yeah.
Kaiser Wilhelm. Is it the Kaiser Wilhelm?
I don't think so. It's okay. We'll look into them later if it even matters.
One quick thing before we take a break here. One more quick story. If it's not the vaccine and different ways to trace it, this medgadget.com saliva COVID test uses smartphone for results in 15 minutes.
Great.
The big thing about this is, and this will go into our break and then out of the break too, scientists at Tulane University have reported a new COVID-19 saliva test that uses a smartphone to provide results in as little as 15 minutes. Similar to technology from UC Berkeley, the new test uses CRISPR technology and does not involve polymerase chain reaction PCR.
Oh, good.
That, though accurate, is slow to deliver results. It is purportedly faster, more accurate, and easier to perform than existing gold standard PCR tests, while requiring less equipment and achieving results in minutes rather than days. The new test detects RNA from the SARS-CoV-2 virus by relying on CRISPR to amplify the signal. This is interesting because isn't that what PCR does? It amplifies the signal.
Yeah, it is.
The test involves mixing an assay solution with a sample of patient saliva on a special chip, which then heats and amplifies a specific region of the virus's RNA. According to a Tulane announcement, quote, a modified CRISPR complex that contains a guide RNA specific for the virus RNA region rapidly binds and cuts both this amplified RNA region and a tagged DNA probe to produce a fluorescent signal that is read by the smartphone device. This test addresses the critical need for a rapid, ultra-sensitive COVID-19 diagnosis along with effective large-scale screening efforts. Blah, blah, blah. So there you go. Now you got to just spit onto a thing, and then your phone will tell you if you have the Ronas.
Oh, good. Got to get the phones involved. This is from KFF.org. The Henry J. Kaiser Family Foundation was established in 1948. Interesting timing. But it was completely remade in 1991. I wonder what the problem was. Under the leadership of CEO Drew Altman, we have not changed our name, but nowadays refer to ourselves simply as KFF. Our legal name can cause occasional confusion because we are neither a foundation, a family foundation, nor are we associated with Kaiser Permanente. We keep the name to honor the legacy of our original benefactor or to lie to anybody who does not take the time to dig deep into your website. The great industrialist Henry J. Kaiser. That's the new research project. Who and what is Henry J. Kaiser? Whose motto, find a need and fill it. We have adapted into our motto, filling the need for trusted information on national health issues. You know what this is? This is so funny. We have not changed our name, but nowadays refer to ourselves simply as KFF. Our legal name can cause occasional confusion because we are neither a foundation, a family foundation, nor are we associated with Kaiser Permanente. This is reminiscent of the Federal Reserve.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
We can just name ourselves whatever we want. It doesn't have to reflect anything about us. And nobody, it's here on our website, so legally we're protected, but who's really going to dig that deep?
That's ridiculous.
So interesting. Gonna look up Mr. Henry J. Kaiser. What did you do to have to
American
remake this whole thing?
industrialist who became known as the father of modern American shipbuilding. Prior to World War II, he was involved in the construction industry.
I want to know the scandals.
He was one of the companies that built the Hoover Dam. There's some conspiracy stuff surrounding that. Yeah. Kaiser Shipyards, which built Liberty ships during World War II. Then he formed Kaiser Aluminum and Kaiser Steel. Kaiser organized Kaiser Permanente healthcare for his workers and his families. Led Kaiser Fraser, followed by Kaiser Motors. Man, this guy's
He's an industrialist. He's got something funky. You don't do that much. You don't build the Hoover Dam without being involved in something that would cause your nonprofit to have to completely remake itself in 1991. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, should we take a little break?
Yeah, we should make it quick. We got a lot to cover.
We're going to make it real quick.
It's break time.
Okay, folks, we're going to take a really quick break, and lucky for the impatient live listeners, it's going to be very quick for reasons that will become clear soon. But after the break, we're going to be visiting a quick segment on the PCR tests. Which is going to be important. And we've got a message from one of our producers who has 25 plus years of experience in the microbiology industry. But then we've got another pandemic special digging into the death toll, perhaps a deleted death toll, who knows? And then, of course, everybody's favorite Nephilim update. But before that, we want to thank some of our producers because we could not continue to do the show as often or as well as we do if it were not for the support of our producers. Now, if you're new, you might notice that we don't play any advertisements, not in the beginning, not in the end, and not in the middle. Guns, you know I listen to podcasts, and I don't listen to Joe Rogan very often, but when he made the switch over to Spotify. Yeah, there was an episode somebody told me to catch, so I went over there. And his Spotify, they're very crafty. First of all, they've got not a joke, literally 8 different advertisements in the beginning. And then on the episode I was on, it comes in 8 advertisements. Okay, skip. And then it starts the thing. It's like, hi, this is Joe Rogan. Here's who we're going to talk about. It's great. I love aliens and whatever. And then it goes into another advertisement segment. They trick you. Yeah, you can skip 8 ads, and then you think you're listening to the podcast, and then it goes into more ads. It's crazy. So anyways, I'm going to try to put this a little bit more succinctly and try to explain it a little bit better, because I recently, I don't know if you saw it, Guns, but we recently got a message from someone who does what we do, and they're kind of being a little bit belittling about the fact that we are so strong against advertisements. And I don't know. I
didn't see it.
Yeah, it's okay. It doesn't matter. This kind of somebody we're friends with. It's cool, but they were really giving us a hard time about not doing advertisements. And here's the thing. I've worked in advertising before, not in any serious sense, but when I was younger, I was trying to get into graphic design and stuff, and worked for some advertising companies, and they literally think of advertising as brainwashing. I mean, that is sometimes they will even say it. Some big advertising executives have quotes about talking about how advertising is brainwashing. And, advertising also, if you watch The Social Dilemma, which puts it very succinctly, advertising is the reason for all the awful things about Facebook, all of the echo chambers, all of the, censoring, all of the shadow banning, all of the this, all of the that, even the existence of influencers is all predicated on the propagation of advertising. If it weren't for advertising, you can literally break it down. If it weren't for advertising, 50% of the things that are awful about the internet would just be gone. And when I say internet, you can extend that out to society, because that's where society lives nowadays. So, when we talk about not doing ads, which we've said before and we'll say it again, we've gotten some pretty big offers to do ads on the show. It's literally because advertising is ruining the world. It is and I consider it a spiritual issue. It's a spiritual principality and power that controls so much in this world. And if Gons and I are going to be serious about the things that we talk about on this show and have to stand before God someday and answer why we did so much work that we did but still participated in advertising, that's just not an explanation I want to try to think of a good excuse to tell God at the end of my life. So that is why we do not play advertising. It incentivizes guys like Gons and I to consider you, dear listener, as a commodity to be traded and sold to advertising companies for our own personal gain, and would change the things we could and couldn't talk about, what we would feel comfortable talking about without the threat of losing advertising dollars. So that's why we don't even play with it. We don't even touch the stove.
What's funny? I was listening to and I do this because it's just in my feed every once in a while, but I'm not even subscribed to this guy's channel, but Ben Shapiro just keeps popping up on my feed on YouTube. And I was watching one of his things, and he starts off with they're talking ads. He's promoting stuff. But I wanted to clip it. I didn't have time. But I literally wanted to clip it and play it during our segment here, because he does this thing where he gets into this really intense thing about Biden and upholding the Constitution and, causing issues with the democracy and just the lies and but also, and then he just goes right into it. No break, nothing. He's, Joe Biden, democracy, Constitution. But first, everybody loves waffles. It's like waffles. He goes from this really intense monologue about the Constitution and threat, and then he goes and talks about waffles for like 2 minutes. And I'm like, man, this is what we're talking about. Like, yeah. I kind of started getting into what he was saying a little. I'm like, oh, what is he talking? Oh, it's kind of crazy. But then the waffle thing just killed it. I'm like, oh, I want to hear him talk about waffles for 2 minutes. But that's kind of what we're talking about.
It just makes me cringe so much. Runk Smash in the Twitch chat says, can we get a CCR episode about the evils of advertising? We literally could make a really good CCR episode about advertising. I mean, it is as diabolical as a lot of the other crazy stuff we talk about. So maybe we will. Maybe that's what we need to do. But anyways, that's why we are on the value for value model. That's right. No advertising here. Instead, we let you, dear listener, decide the value of the pieces of media that you enjoy. You don't want no advertising company to decide the value of Canary Cry News Talk. You are not just a listener. You can be a producer and decide what the monetary value of this show is. And you can do that, first of all, by heading over to patreon.com/CCNT for Canary Cry News Talk. And let's see who did that this week. Since Monday, we have one new producer, and everybody needs to give a round of applause to our new producer, Melissa A.
Woo! Thank you, Melissa. See, we applaud our producers while the mainstream media applauds the jab.
The jab, jeez. Okay, thank you very much, Melissa A. And yes, don't worry, everybody. This section will be short, but all the more reason to thank you, producer Melissa A. Next, we have patreon.com/Canary Cry Radio. That's patreon.com/Canary Cry Radio. And we have we have an upgrading producer, and that is producer Martin B.
Thank you, producer Martin B.
Thank you very much, producer Martin B. So that's all for the Patreon producers. Thank you so much to producer Melissa A. and upgraded producer Martin B. Thank you for producing the show. It is the only way that we can continue doing the show with a clean conscience. We appreciate you. Now, if you're out there and you want to become a producer, Patreon is not the only way. Some people don't like Patreon, and that's okay. You can head over to canarycryradio.com/support.
canarycryradio.com/support.
That's right. canarycryradio.com/support. There's a lot of literature on that page that you can hear more about the value for value model. But there's PayPal options. You can become a monthly producer, which we appreciate all of our monthly producers. That goes a long way towards laying down a firm foundation to keep the show going. And but there's also, if commitment is not your thing, there's also one-time producerships in any amount you like through PayPal. There's also cryptocurrency options, etc., etc. Gons, who is coming in on the PayPal?
PayPal, we had one new, or at least a one-time give support person here. Mm-hmm. Ciara coming in. Thank you, producer Ciara.
Thank you very much, producer Ciara.
She said happy holidays. So thank you, producer Ciara, and all the recurring people there. And that's it for PayPal. So
okay, there we go. Yep. Short time. Sweet. Are we going to do the knighting on Friday?
I was hoping so because
yeah, let's do it. We need a couple more pieces of information.
Yes, producer Aaron out there, if you're listening, we need try harder with name and everything.
No, the name is fine, but we need his protectorate.
Yeah, I know, but I asked him for a knighthood name, and he just said Aaron.
I think the name is fine, but he needs a protectorate. Yeah, he needs to choose his protectorate. So right, thank you. For those who don't know, we have the Canary Cry Roundtable of Knights and Dames, and those are special producers that we like to honor because over the years, they have supported the show in the amount of $1,000 or more, and they are just wonderful people. Now, there's other ways to produce the show if financially is not in the cards for you. That's okay. Here on the Value for Value model, we have many options to produce the show. It's not just all about your money. Gons, you want to tell us about it?
Yes. So you can send us jingles and songs that are show oriented, and we'll play it on the playlist. Today, we're going to actually have a new song at the end of the show mix, and it is from producer Arnie, I believe. Producer Arnie, he wrote a song called "Yoked to You."
Oh, yeah.
And the lyrics are a little hard to understand in the mix there, but I'll play a few seconds of it so you guys can take a listen here. There it is. Little pop punk. Put my drums out.
Fun.
Good stuff.
Very good. Thank you, producer Arnie. We'll be playing that at the end of the show and during the Canary Cry mixtape. We might need to boost the vocals on that a little bit. We'll have to talk
I was
to
going to
Arnie.
say, yeah, boost the vocals. The lyrics you just heard there, make way for Basil and Gons as they expose Babylon.
Woo!
There's a line drawn in the sand. We won't be pulled from his hand. To the Father, you lift us up. Jesus. So good lyrics.
Yeah, that's great.
Put it up more front and center.
Yeah.
I get it. I understand the,
That's always the thing. If you mix your own stuff, you always put the vocals lower.
I know.
But that's good. Very good, Arnie. We'll play it at the end of the show. And maybe we'll try to boost the mix there a little bit.
And the other way you can support the show with your time and talent is with artwork.
Woo!
Uh-oh, what happened? What happened to my art jingle? Here it is.
One art, please.
I'm having issues with the computer. It's doing interesting things. The first one here is from producer Allie. And producer Allie drew a picture of me playing the drums. That's right.
You've got your she even did a great job of depicting your green screen drumsticks. You'll notice if you get in there close that the drumsticks are invisible up until about the top third.
She pays attention to the details. So great job. And I'm on a 5-piece drum set, and the kick drum name there, Canary Criers, kind of like an old band from the 60s or whatever. And then over to my left, over to my right is Z from China.
Xi Jinping.
And he's clapping because we are entertaining.
He loves your drumming.
He loves my drumming. I don't know why, but yeah. There you go.
We must have said something. It's like Xi Jinping spying on your drumming, Gons.
The piece is called...
He looks like he's enjoying it. He's got his Winnie the Pooh bear face there.
I thought it was a panda. But either way, it's the same. The piece is called Big Brother is Watching.
That's racist.
There you go.
It's not racist. A panda. It's Winnie the Pooh. That's the whole thing.
Oh, that's right. You're right. Okay, so thank you, producer Allie. Keep it up. Fantastic job there, as usual. And then we have art from Barzillai.
Yeah, Barzillai coming in with another Canary Cry I Spy.
Yes.
That's so fun. I posted that on Facebook. Unfortunately, we're like anyways, nothing I ever post on Facebook makes it anywhere anymore. They don't want me spreading the good news, but I did post it on the Facebook because it's a fun game. It's the Canary Cry I Spy, and in this one, we have a second edition. And on the Canary Cry I Spy list, you've got things like Samurai Gons, Basil Podcasterson is in there. You've got BD Beast Police Force, Interdimensional Invaders. Oh, good. We always got to have those. Drone Strike Save Lives. Let's see. Ooh, Canary Cry album art is in there somewhere. Mutant Spider Cat, Pizza Illuminati, Masonic Gestapo, all sorts of good stuff. A fun Canary Cry I Spy game for those who have an eye to detect the deception.
Yep, there you go. So thank you so much, producer Barzilai. Also wanted to thank Jade Bouncerson, is Ebony Blaze, which is producer Charlie. There's multiple names there, but for the timestamps, appreciate that. Continue to do that. We really thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
And just a mention of the Canary Cry merch perch. And that's about it. We should probably get back. I'm running low on time here.
Okay, we'll jump right into it. But just to give it its full due, Canary Cry merch perch is run by producer Dust, a Canary Cry producer. Gons and I have nothing to do with it except for our emotional support. It's got all sorts of great merch, from logo merch all the way to merch created from Canary Cry art created by producers. It's awesome. Go check it out. Canary Cry merchperch.com. Everything is sold at cost to keep the cost low for Canarians, but you do have the opportunity to tip the webmaster, the artist, or Gons and I. So go check that out. CanaryCryMerchperch.com.
All right, let's get back to it. And actually, it's kind of a hybrid moment here.
Yes, it's wake.
Hey, yo, wake up.
Because we wanted to address an email that came in from producer Mark. That's Enumati.
Yes. Do you have it pulled up?
I don't.
Okay, let me pull it up real quick. Sorry. But yeah, so producer Mark is a long time I always forget exactly what it is. But he's a longtime professional in the world of biomolecular stuff. Hold on here. I'm sorry. I'm trying to talk and pull up an email at the same time. Now,
I got it here. If you want me to?
I got it here too. So Basil and Gons. And here's the thing. We love getting learned something by professionals, but we do have a little bit of a conversation to have with this. Let's see. Basil and Gons, I'm writing to comment on your repeated statement that, to paraphrase, the PCR test is not a test. I have to disagree, or rather suggest a correction to your thinking about the C19 PCR testing. Let me try to simplify this if I can. Please try to simplify this. When someone has a suspected infection, the doctor will order a test, or sometimes call it an assay, to try to determine what the infection agent is, or to rule in or out some suspected infectious agents. Originally, this was done by getting a clinical sample from the patient, e.g. blood, urine, feces, swab, and then looking to see if the suspected organism was present. For bacterial infections, this sometimes included trying to culture the organism in growth medium and or looking at a specimen under a microscope. Some organisms have very distinct morphologies. To put that simply, just take a sample and then try to grow whatever bug is in there, so you have more to look at. A good example would be testing for strep throat. You go to the doctor's office, he takes a swab from your throat and submits it to a diagnostic laboratory. The swab, or a solution the swab is placed in, is put into a special culture medium. If the organism that causes strep throat, Streptococcus, is present, it will grow on the medium as very distinct colonies, which then can further be tested, which antibiotics may be the best, test. I don't mean to skip over it for any other reason besides time. In past decades, newer methods to detect infectious agents based on their genetic code have been developed for many diseases. This is especially true for viral agents, since they are often very difficult to culture from samples, and you basically need to do electron microscopy to try to visually identify them. One of the key methods to look for viral infections is polymerase chain reactions, or PCR. There are many variants of the C19 PCR test, but the main one I've seen is RT-qPCR, which stands for Reverse Transcriptase Quantitative Polymerase Chain Reaction. I will just use PCR for the short hereafter. Thank you. The PCR test is not the rapid test. The rapid test is looking for viral proteins, not viral genetic sequences. Based on my understanding, most of the C19 PCR tests look for 2 or more viral genetic sequences in C19, so they can be very selective, e.g., the only C19 and not other similar viruses. Because it involves amplifying a small amount of virus in the collected sample, it can also be very sensitive. You seem to have gotten caught up on the amplification issue of PCR, and then got into the point of saying the C19 PCR test is not a test. With the exception of a direct microscopic detection of an infectious agent in a sample, as stated above, most infection diagnostic tests involve amplification. When the throat swab sample is put onto growth medium, the Streptococcus bacteria self-amplify. Each bacterial cell reproduces until colonies then can be seen appear on the medium and can be further tested as needed. For C19, it is just using a chemical process, PCR, to amplify the C19 genetic sequences. Just because there is amplification during PCR does not mean that PCR is not a test. I will push back a little bit on the rhetoric there, because with a Streptococcus, you call it self-amplify. I mean, it just grows like a bacteria does. It reproduces itself, which is, that's a bacteria reproducing itself so you can look at it more. That's not what happens with PCR. Not to say that's what you're saying, but rhetorically they are not as similar. I don't think they're as similar as you explain it, but maybe that's just because I'm not a biomedical professional. So PCR is the method used in the C19 PCR process, just like culturing, microscopy, etc. are used as methods of those respective tests for other infectious agents. To say that PCR is not a test is misleading. Well, misleading is a strong word. All that being said, the C19 PCR test does have some major issues that you've brought up on several other shows. The main one is that if you run the PCR process too long, too many cycles, you can get false positives. That is why there needs to be proper controls run with batches of tests, and why some guidelines must be established so that a rational cycle limit is used. Based on the wide variation on cycle limits being reported, proper standardization has obviously not been established, and one can easily think there may be ulterior motives and agenda at play. The idea of infectious agent load comes into play here. Let's take the example of strep throat I discussed above. Say you go into a doctor because you have a sore leg. For some reason, the doctor decides to take a swab of your throat and they detect streptococcus. That does not mean you have strep throat. You do not have any symptoms of strep throat. You have a sore leg. We are exposed every day to many bacteria and viruses, most of which are easily dealt with by our amazing immune system. So just detecting an infectious agent in a sample does not mean you have an infection. I think we all agree with that. The same applies to C19. The highly selective and sensitive C19 PCR test may detect C19 RNA genetic sequences, but it is likely detecting C19 in people who are neither showing any sign of an infection or they're feeling sick due to something entirely different, nor are they likely to pass C19 to someone else. This latter issue definitely needs more research, with a definite determination of asymptomatic people can infect others. However, These issues do not mean that the C19 PCR test is not a test or assay. It most certainly is. I would highly recommend looking at, and then he gives us an official, I could look at all sorts of things. He says looking at the American Society of Microbiology FAQ on C19 testing here, which also has some simple visuals. Also, a few other links, gives us a lot of links. Thank you very much. Hope this is useful info. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Always here to help. Thank you. Blessings and keep up the great work. Thank you, producer Mark. And I went ahead and read the whole thing because A, he's a producer of the show, and that's what producers get. But also, it is important to get a full understanding of these things. I feel like our disagreements are mostly rhetorical, a matter rather of language than it is in practice.
It's like a semantics thing, and we're coming at it from, at least I am, when I say it's not a test. It's because even in your email here, you mentioned how just because there's some fragments of it detected doesn't mean you're symptomatic or that you can pass it on or anything like that. And so for the layman to call it a test,
to say whether you have it or don't have it, and then take actions based on that.
Right.
That's
right.
So from a scientific sort of academic, medicinally practicing person, calling something a test might mean many different things, a range of the definition of a test. Whereas when you use the word a test in a public, as a public use of the word, most people are like, oh, it's a test. Do I have it? Do I not? And I liked that he mentioned the assay issue because on the long list of weird things that I've done in my life, one of them is I've staked claims for silver mining, more of a pastime than any sort of profitable venture. But when you stake a claim, you get soil samples assayed, and that'll tell you if it's worth digging or not. And is actually a very similar problem, because when you get soil samples assayed for a mineral, they can tell you if there is some there or not. But a lot of times you can get such a small sampling that you don't really know if it's really there or not, and it's just not very helpful as a test. You're like, well, yeah, there's silver extant in this soil sample, but there's no way to tell. There's no practical thing you can do with that information, because it may have just as much silver as, the next guy. Doesn't mean there's any silver on your plot. And in the same way, it's not very helpful at all as a test in a lot of cases, but at least a practical test in the sort of colloquial usage of the word test. But you have some more.
Well, I have the Kary Mullis clip here talking about it. He doesn't explicitly say that it's not a test, and I'm sure this has been played before, but this is Kary Mullis, the inventor of the PCR. We'll call it a test.
Okay.
But here it is.
How do they misuse PCR to estimate all these supposed free viral RNAs that may or may not be there?
I think misuse PCR is not quite. I don't think you can misuse PCR. No, the results, the interpretation of it. See, if you can say, if they could find this virus in you at all. And with PCR, if you do it well, you can find almost anything in anybody. It starts making you believe in the sort of Buddhist notion that everything is contained in everything else, right? Because if you can amplify one single molecule up to something that you can really measure, which PCR can do, then there's just very few molecules that you don't have at least one single one of them in your body. Okay, so that could be thought of as a misuse of it, just to claim that it's meaningful. And it is. No, there's very little of what they call HIV, and what's been brought out here by Philpott and Isai already. The measurement for it is not exact at all. It's not as good as our measurement for things like apples. An apple is an apple. You know, you can get something that's kind of like, if you got enough things that look kind of like an apple and you stick them all together, you might think of it as an apple. But and HIV is like that. Those tests are all based on things that are invisible, and the results are inferred in a sense. PCR is separate from that. It's just a process that's used to make a whole lot of something out of something. That's what it is. But it's not. It doesn't tell you that you're sick, and it doesn't tell you that the thing you ended up with really was going to hurt you or anything like that.
So there you go. That's where we kind of got that notion of it's not a test, is the inventor of PCRs sitting there and sort of explaining the nuances of how, again, you can take anything and
it's an amplification process that you can use to amplify the amount of any molecule that you're looking for. Now, I don't know if it can detect silver in my soil sample. I just mean, in the context of looking for some viral disease. Now, as you heard in there, PCR, one of its biggest past uses was for HIV, which, of course, Anthony Fauci had a big hand in. And also, Anthony Fauci was just as much of a controversial figure back in the HIV, in his days working in the HIV realm, as he is now. And in fact, had similar conspiracy theories floating around him back then. But that's neither here nor there. So, I really, really do appreciate producer Mark sending these notes in. It's always, I love hearing all sorts of different sides of it. It sounds like this is a bit more of a rhetorical disagreement or divergence.
Or just a semantic use of it. And this is part of I think it speaks to a greater issue of what we're dealing with right now, which is that the scientific community has their verbiage, or any community of professionals has their own verbiage, and it's very exclusive and very specific to what they're talking about. I listen to my wife talk about whatever she talks about in all of her with her job, which she's a manager, a senior manager of a medical supply company for the IT end of it. And I sit there and listen to her meetings and I'm like, I have no idea what they're talking about. Literally, they use language that is completely different.
Right.
I understand the words, like I understand they're speaking English, but how it's applied and what it means is a little bit different. So that divide between what professionals use as certain words and how it is consumed or projected onto the greater public,
right?
That chasm there is what I think we're talking about in trying to clarify what exactly is taking place with the PCR, and just call it a test. Well, yeah, okay, in the medical professional, it clearly is a test to test for something. But if you're talking about in the general public, if they just want to know, hey,
do I need
sick?
To quarantine? Do I need to take hydroxychloroquine or whatever your response might be?
Am I going to die from C19? It's not exactly clear that a PCR is going to or the results of the PCR are going to give you the result, the kind of outcome or the information even to give you an informed, the informed situation of what's going on. But
and producer Mark points out at the end of his email there that there's obvious problems with PCR, mainly being that depending on how you run the test, you can say, oh yeah, you just got a little tiny fragment in there, no big deal. If you're not sick, you're okay. Or you can crank it up and go, oh my gosh, you're a super spreader. And
you want to hear what Daddy Fauci had to say about it real quick? I have a clip of that too.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Science is truth.
Oh.
This week in Virology, the podcast about viruses, the kind that make you sick.
NPR.
There have been a number of reports of patients who shed viral RNA for weeks, as determined by PCR. It doesn't seem to be infectious virus. And the real question is, are they a threat for transmission? And I'm wondering if you think we could use a cutoff of viral loads determined by PCR to say this patient is no longer infectious can go home, can go to a nursing facility? Because right now the physicians are really having a hard time with that.
Right. Again, a good question. And what is now sort of evolving into a bit of a standard that if you get a cycle threshold of 35 or more, that the chances of it being replication competent are minuscule. So that if somebody, and we have patients, and it's very frustrating for the patients as well as for the physicians. Somebody comes in and they repeat their PCR and it's like 37 cycle threshold. But you almost never can culture virus from a 37 threshold cycle. So I think if somebody does come in with 37, 38, even 36, you got to say, it's just dead nucleotides, period.
There you go. That's Daddy Fauci saying it's dead nucleotides.
Yeah.
if 35 or over.
Right. And that's that amplification process that we're talking about, that if they run it, and later on in that, isn't it later on in that clip that he kind of straight up says like, oh, even 35 is too much. You really should be playing it around 32 or 33 or something like that.
Something close. Yeah. The World Health Organization came out and said 45.
Great. Okay.
So that's kind of where people are like, not even people, normal people, not scientists people, but people like myself, a layman when it comes to all this, are sitting there going, okay, so listen to Fauci, but what he's saying here doesn't line up. There's just a lot of confusion.
Right. And it's meant to be that way, because as much confusion as you creates more in a normal population will make people just give up trying to understand and just do what they're told.
Now is the time to do what you're told.
Just do what we say.
Special.
Okay, I wanted to include this as well because this is something that I didn't see until John C. Dvorak sent out his newsletter. But apparently the John Hopkins newsletter, published by the students of John Hopkins since 1896. On November 26, 2020, they published an article called A Closer Look at U.S. Deaths Due to COVID-19. And I'll read parts of it here. Genevieve Bryand, Assistant Program Director of the Applied Economics Master's Degree Program at Hopkins, critically analyzed the effect of COVID-19 on U.S. deaths using data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, in her webinar titled COVID-19 Deaths, A Look at U.S. Data. From mid-March to mid-September, U.S. total deaths have reached 1.7 million. This is total deaths, not COVID deaths, like all the deaths combined. 1.7 million, of which 200,000 or 12% of total deaths are COVID-19 related. Instead of looking directly at COVID-19 deaths, Bryand focused on total deaths per age group and per cause of death in the U.S. and used this information to shed light on the effects of COVID-19. And she says, the article continues, after retrieving data on the CDC website, Bryand compiled a graph representing percentages of total deaths per age category from early February to early September, which includes the period from before COVID-19 was detected in the U.S. to after infection rates soared. Surprisingly, the deaths of older people stayed the same before and after COVID-19. Since COVID-19 mainly affects the elderly, experts expected an increase in the percentage of deaths in older age groups. However, this increase is not seen from the CDC data. In fact, the percentages of deaths among all age groups remain relatively the same. And then I won't read. I'm going to skip a couple parts here for purpose of time. Therefore, according to Bryant, not only has COVID-19 had no effect on the percentage of deaths of older people, but it has also not increased the total number of deaths. These data analyses suggest that in contrast to most people's assumptions, the number of deaths by COVID-19 is not alarming. In fact, it has relatively no effect on deaths in the United States. This comes as a shock to many people. How is it that the data lie so far from our perception? To answer this question, Bryant shifted her focus to the deaths per causes ranging from 2014 to 2020. There is a sudden increase in deaths in 2020 due to COVID-19. This is no surprise because COVID-19 emerged in the U.S. in early 2020, and thus COVID-19 related deaths increased drastically afterward. Analysis of deaths per cause in 2018 revealed that the pattern of seasonal increase in the total number of deaths is a result of the rise in deaths by all causes, with the top three being heart disease, respiratory disease, influenza, and pneumonia. This is true this is a quote, "This is true every year. Every year in the U.S., when we observe the seasonal ups and downs, we have an increase of deaths due to all causes," Brian pointed out. When Brian looked at the 2020 data during that seasonal period, COVID-19 related deaths exceeded deaths from heart diseases. This is highly unusual since heart disease has always prevailed as the leading cause of deaths. However, when taking a closer look at the death numbers, she noted something strange. As Brian compared the number of deaths per cause during that period in 2020 to 2018, she noticed that instead of the expected drastic increase across all causes, there was a significant decrease in deaths due to heart disease. Even more surprising is seen in the graph below. This sudden decline in deaths is observed for all other causes. It shows a chart here. And it goes on. This trend is completely contrary to the pattern observed in all previous years. Interestingly, as depicted in the table below, the total decrease in deaths by other causes almost exactly equals the increase in deaths by COVID-19.
Wow.
This suggests, according to Brian, that the COVID-19 death toll is misleading. Brian believes the deaths due to heart disease, respiratory disease, influenza, and pneumonia may instead be recategorized as being due to COVID-19. The CDC classified all deaths that are related to COVID-19 simply as COVID-19 deaths. Even patients dying from other underlying diseases but are infected with COVID-19 count as COVID-19 deaths. This is likely the main explanation as to why COVID-19 deaths drastically increased while death by all other diseases experienced a significant decrease. Quote, "All of this points to no evidence that COVID-19 created any excess deaths. Total death numbers are not above normal death numbers. We found no evidence to the contrary," Bryant concluded. And it goes on for a little bit longer, but you get the gist of it here. As we suspected, the way this is more of a category error than it is, just a pandemic.
Yeah.
And the actual Johns Hopkins newsletter retracted on this article. They pulled it.
Yeah.
After 4 days of being, maybe less than that, 3 days after it was published. And in their stead, they published this note. And in the note, it says the newsletter. This is now the Johns Hopkins side of things on why they decided to pull the article. They said that we decided on November 26th to retract this article to stop the spread of misinformation, as we noted on social media. And then they go on. The newsletter is an editorially and financially independent student-run publication. Our articles and content are not endorsed by the university or the School of Medicine, and our decision to retract this article was made independently. Brian's study should not be used exclusively in understanding the impact of COVID-19, but should be taken in context with the countless other data published by Hopkins, the World Health Organization, and the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. As Assistant Director for the Masters in Applied Economics program in Hopkins, Brian is neither a medical professional nor a disease researcher. At her talk, she herself stated that more research and data are needed to understand.
Student. She's not a medical professional because she's a medical student.
And she herself stated more research and data are needed to understand the effects of COVID-19 in the U.S. Well, duh, that's what everybody says. But it's very fascinating how there's no actual refutation of the data here. They just go after Brian, the character. This is the clear ad hominem. It's like, oh, it's not a real a real professional.
Yeah.
And then just saying that, oh, you got to take this information with other things we've published on Johns Hopkins. So did not address the actual elephant in the room, which is the data, which if we take the advice of Daddy Fauci,
science is truth.
We should listen to the data, right? We got to listen to the science. But when it's not, when it doesn't feed the narrative, they have to yank it. And so the only place you can find this article is in archive.org. And it's really funny. I shared it on social media and I got a response. Somebody hit me with the link, the link back.
Nice.
And they hit me with the link that said that basically the headline was archive.org helping spread misinformation. I was like, wait a minute. So you're going to dismiss all the data that's presented here and just go after the medium, archive.org?
Yeah,
really? That's your argument?
Shame on an organization that tries to hold people accountable to their retractions and their additions to the information that they put out.
Yeah,
so that person is just silly.
Yeah. So there you go. I think it's pretty clear. And again, this is with information publicly provided by the CDC. So it's not like, they found this data on a QAnon board or something, not to go after the QAnon folks, but just as an example, it's not something that was pulled out from Conspiracy Blog or something like that. This was actually on the Johns Hopkins newsletter and, published by students, but still, I mean, to get on there, it's not going to just.
Well, yeah, because students won't lose funding by telling the truth.
Exactly. So just thought I'd throw that out there for more ammunition for anybody that's trying to say like, oh, the crazy pandemic.
Yeah. I mean, more than anything, it's just the issue with maintaining a narrative that the data doesn't necessarily support. And of course, when any data comes out that does not directly support a mainstream narrative, shame on you.
Yeah. And I really wish I can dig more, deeply more into the data because I have a neighbor who's a nurse, and she was talking about how, we're getting, over flooded and there's so many, we're running out of ICU beds and the whole narrative. She's a nurse, so I believe her.
Yeah.
But I also want to say, okay, wait a minute though. How do we know that the issues people are having aren't just from other things? Like it's a categorization situation here. And there's just no way to really tell. And I think even the medical professionals, the nurses themselves, I mean, you got some saying that this is all a scam.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the main thing is, I mean, I don't think you or I disagree on the fact that COVID-19 is a real disease, and it probably is being found in a lot of people. I don't think that's really any sort of disagreement. It's just
weaponization of that.
Well, the issue being what choices are being made to shift society when the total death count is really not that different than it is year to year, or at least according to the CDC information. What the actions that are being taken by elected officials, unelected officials, the social shaming that happens, the control over society, economics, and such. The problem is not, is the disease extant or is it not? Is the real issue is, can we really tell people that they can't go to work or run businesses or stop feeding their children or not see their grandma or be publicly shamed for this or that because of it? That's the big problem. I mean, I don't know. There's all sorts of theories about the existence of COVID-19 and its categorization as whatever. I mean, it is a coronavirus, like a cold. I'm not calling the coronavirus, I'm not calling COVID-19 the cold, but, some people call it akin to a flu or a bad this or that. That's not even really the question. The big question is, does our government have the right to do what they're doing? Most of the time they do not. And is it overall healthier or less healthy in the overall scheme of things to shut things down such that children aren't able to eat at night and shut down, whether it be social services or charities or businesses, or uptick in suicides and drug use and domestic abuse and all these things? Is that really the right reaction to what's going on? And that's the biggest problem.
Yeah, it's that part of it is really frustrating to me. That's what drives me crazy. Is that you have all these folks just kind of going along with the narrative, and how much of the media is complicit in creating a social psychosis, almost a physiological response where they're all freaked out because, oh my gosh, I tested positive. I have to go to the ICU. I'm going to die.
Yeah.
That part of it, the psychological part of it affecting your physical body and maybe, some other issues popping up.
Totally. Yeah.
That's a huge thing. That's a big psychological warfare.
Closing down gyms so people can't stay healthy and get fit, and this is also, it's a great reason to get the robots into the workforce. But you all know that. All right, Guns. Well, for sake of time, I think it's time for a Nephilim update. What do you think?
Nephilim update.
This is from audible.com.
Oh,
a Nephilim thriller. This is the name of this. Devil's Den, a gripping supernatural thriller. And this is what it says here. My name is Stephen Cabot, and I'm a former spy with a dark past. I'm trying to change, but some habits stick with you, and killing is one of those habits.
Oh, no.
I've recently started seeing demons and have even had to fight a few. I suspect it has something to do with my crazy mother. She killed my father when I was young, claiming he was a demon. I figured she was nuts, but now I'm not so certain. I've returned home to uncover the truth about my past when my old flame, Kate, asks for my help. I haven't heard from her in 16 years, but I owe her. A mysterious cult has kidnapped her teenage daughter, and I'm the only chance she has to get her back.
Wow.
What seems like a simple case turned into a much larger fight between light and darkness. It appears that both heaven and hell want to use my services, which forces me into a rather difficult choice. To make matters worse, a fallen angel wants an unhealthy romantic relationship with me and won't just take no for an answer.
Oh, no.
Or at least that's what I think. But to be fair, I only have a tentative grasp on reality at the moment.
Whoa. Okay.
That's Devil's Den is supernatural thriller, a Nephilim thriller.
Okay, sounds like a blast. Find it on audible.com.
Audible.com, 9 hours and 33 minutes.
Oh, wow, that's a decent listen there. We're not sponsored by Audible. Okay, sounds good. Did we do it? Should we land the plane?
Oh, wait, I got to read this part. Evolved Publishing presents an intriguing, thrilling look inside a great battle between good and evil, possibly leading to the end days, with the first book in the award-winning A Nephilim Thriller series.
A Nephilim Thriller. Okie dokie, everybody. There you go. That's all we got for you this Wednesday. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. And thank you to those who are watching live. And remember, if after every episode, we do post these on our RSS feed on whatever podcast player you use. So go ahead and search Canary Cry News Talk and subscribe to the podcast version. Because if you ever miss a live show, you can go. We put up the sound quality is higher, and make sure to do that. Subscribe. Listen to the podcast version. At least it's a good backup if you can't see a live show. So there you go. We will be back on Friday the 18th. That's Friday, December 18th, sometime between noon and 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So make sure to put it on your calendar, turn on notifications, whatever you got to do. Don't miss the show. And make sure to subscribe to the podcast feed as well. And make sure to, if you're thinking about becoming a producer, participating in the value for value model. I know a lot of you probably tuned out for the the value for value section this episode, but go back and listen to it. It's a new, some new info there. Advertising being one of the biggest, I would say, negative supernatural powers going on in the world today. It's the reason Facebook is the problem that it is. It's the reason mind control is so blatant and widespread. Advertising really is a big problem. And that's why we are on the value for value model, because we can't stand before God and explain why we advertised when we knew we shouldn't. So don't let advertising agencies decide the value of your media. That's up to you, folks. And you can do that by becoming a producer at patreon.com/CCNT or canarycryradio.com/support.
canarycryradio.com/support.
That's right. canarycryradio.com/support. And if you haven't done it yet, make sure to hit the like button on that YouTube video. Very helpful. Thank you very much. Now, here's the thing. There's all sorts of other ways to become a producer of the show. You can create art. You can create jingles. You can write songs for the Canary Cry mixtape at the end of the show. Make them all show related, and you can email those to canarycryradio@gmail.com. That's canarycryradio@gmail.com, and we'll put it on the next show. So thank you very much to all of our producers today, both financial and creative. We couldn't do the show without you. And thank you to all of our infrastructure producers as well. We've got producer Smiley over at canarycry.community. We've got producer Dust running the Canary Cry merch perch. Oh man, it's just such a family affair. We appreciate everybody who makes the show happen. Now, there's other ways to produce the show. Well, there's other ways to help out the show, and one of those is leaving ratings and reviews. If you have not left a rating and a review, you can do that at Apple Podcasts. Or on whatever podcast player you use. Just search Canary Cry News Talk and leave a review. I'll be reading reviews on Friday's show. It's always a blast, whether they're talking about how great the show is or how much they don't like me. It's always fun. We're having fun here. And lastly, share the show. Put it out on your social media. Thank you. I see everybody who puts that out on Twitter and Facebook and things like that. Please continue to do that and tag your friends, people who might appreciate listening to the show. Remember that the YouTube version of the show will have, what are they called? Timestamps, yes. And thank you to, can we just say it's Producer Charlie? Thank you very much, Producer Charlie, for the timestamps. It helps people who find the episode just kind of jump around and find whatever subject matter they want to listen to without having to full on jump into the show. But either way, if you've got friends, you got family, they're starting to wake up to the fact that the world is not what it seems. We just share the show with them, and then you guys can listen together or separate and talk about it. It's a good time. And well, thank you very much for that. And if you need any more instructions, here's what you do. You walk right up to him, you grab him by the cage, and then you shake it.
The end of the world occurred pretty much as we had predicted.
I want to shake things up, stir up some controversy, rattle a few cages. Hey, stop that! You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man, a crusader for the little guy. Leave the bird alone. Never. Rattle a few cages. Rattle a few cages.
The human race will have every opportunity to improve.
And if they don't?
Ask Noah.
That's right. Just ask Noah. All right, Gons, any last words?
Basil is a poo-poo face, says people in the chat.
I can take it. Go on, do your worst. Don't do it. Very fragile. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Canary Cry News Talk. We'll be back on Friday, the 18th of December, the year of our Lord, 2020. So make sure to be there or be square. But until then, remember to think outside the cage.
Look it up.
He's a Satanist! Stop this progress before it is too late! You can't handle the truth! Shoo, hallelujah! That was nice! Aliens! 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 Disagree. Remember,